Hi.
Hello.
Your sister told me where to find you. I'm sorry, but I need to talk to you.
You're always welcome here, Mr. Dunphy.
Oh, thank you. Suna, we both know what Mary did was wrong, but do we think she deserves 7.5 years in prison for it? Do you think you could find it in your heart to say you believe she should be released?
Then I'd have to give you up. She never said she was sorry for what she done to my family.
No, I know that, but she needs your help, Suna.
She never said she was sorry.
We were best friends. Always together. The sex wasn't that important.
If you could see us together, you would know that.
What were you hoping or fearing would happen after the first kiss?
I thought we could be strong. And wait.
Buddha! Buddha! Buddha, get your ass out here. What's up with that? It's a teacher. Just kissing. Promise me, man, don't say anything. Mama killed me.
Mary. Hey. How's Buddha's art class?
Oh, it's going really well. Do you need any help?
I got it, thanks. Oh, thanks, son.
Ma, I'm spending the night at Mrs. Letourneau's, hanging out with Stephen.
Oh, Buddha, you bothered Mrs. Letourneau enough.
It's okay, right, Mrs. Letourneau?
Oh, sure. Stephen's expecting him.
You're too good, Mary. Thank you.
What did they say?
I told them that I ain't got no money, which is a fact. We are broke. Said you can't get blood from a turnip.
That's what you said?
Yes, that is what I said. We're broke.
Say that.
What is plain English? What are you talking about?
That's so dumb. Oh. You asked for an installment to pay for an installment.
Give me a break. Would you stop? We are having a discussion here. Do not talk to me like I'm one of your students, okay? Why don't you phone me? You know, I'm sick of this. I am so sick of this. I'm... Yeah, whose fault is that?
Get away from me. You get away from me.
Whose fault is that? You've been asking me questions. I'm going to ask you a few. Who's too good to clean my house? Too good to sleep with me? You can ask questions. How come I can't?
It's my favorite kind.
I know. When do you think you're gonna die?
I don't know. My grandmother lived till she was 102. Maybe I'll die at 102.
Then I'm gonna die at 81.
Oh, Vili.
Because I don't want to live another day without you.
Ma'am, get out of there for a minute. There's someone in there with you?
Friend of mine?
How old is he?
18.
You're how old?
13.
Yeah, hold on.
Mary?
What's wrong?
I had a fight with my husband, and I had to get out of the house. Vili came with me, and...
Who's this lady to you?
My teacher.
I was driving around. I didn't know where to go. He fell asleep in the back seat, and I parked the car, and the police came, and I'm going to hand you back to the officer.
Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Letourneau is our friend. She's been very helpful in taking care of my son.
Let me write this up.
What's the matter? Come over here. Come on.
No, Vili.
They're asleep.
I can't, Vili.
Come on.
Vili, please.
Come on.
No.
Come on. I can't wait anymore. Come on. I have to be with you. I can't think of anything else. Why are you afraid? You think I want to get you pregnant?
No, that's not it. I can't have any more kids. It's you. You're just barely...
You think I haven't done this before? Come on, baby. You're so pretty. Come on. I love you.
Vili didn't force me. Up to a second before, I didn't think it would happen.
What triggered it then?
I needed the relationship. So did he.
I need you.
Do you ever have any sense that as the adult you were in control?
No. Vili pursued me as a man pursues a woman. He has the dominant sexual urges. And I gave in to his needs. This isn't your school anymore. You can't be here.
I can be anywhere I want. I want to be with you.
You need to go to middle school and see what that's all about. I've got to get out of this marriage the right way first, and you need to experience being a teenager. Your girlfriend's your own age. You need to go play.
Listen to me. Recess is over.
Mary, is everything okay?
Yes.
What's going on?
Nothing.
That kid is going to be trouble for you.
Oh, you don't understand.
I think you're going to have to do something about it.
Oh, he's so talented. I just want to help him. I don't want to abandon him like everyone
else in his life. Okay, just be careful, okay? Okay, gotta get the glass.
Pregnant?
Be right there.
I don't get it. What do you mean pregnant? I thought you couldn't have any more kids.
I thought so. Which is why this is even more of a miracle. I'm making you a baby.
What about abortion?
I couldn't. This is you and me.
Oh, man. Mary. 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 Mary.
We are linked forever in this child. I'm not taking these.
For God's sake, Mary, your only way out of this is for something to be wrong with you. You pled guilty.
You made me plead guilty.
The prosecution has love letters. They have a statement from Vili, a confession from you. They have a child with Vili's DNA. And you want to plead innocent?
Mary, look, this little pill is a test. It's just a test. Let's see how you respond.
It shows good faith to the court that you admit there's a problem and you're trying to fix it.
I'm not bipolar.
It's your only hope for probation and to see your kids again.
If I see my children again, I have to tell them I'm a sex offender. That's what pleading guilty has gotten me into.
I'm going to get you out of this, and this is the only way. Now, I want you to make a statement to the judge apologizing.
Apologizing for what? Vili said I should have sex one more time with Steve to cover.
How long did that work?
A little while.
Mary?
So it's fun, huh?
Mommy, what happened?
Think I'm stupid? That makes this baby's mine?
No.
Hey, kids, wanna know what Mommy's been doing with Vili? Huh? She's been playing house. It's right here in fucking one. You're disgusting. You think I'm gonna find out?
Hello? We need help.
Stop seeing her or I call the police. And tell your mommy. Is that so? She's my wife. What up? For you. She's mine. Forever. You get it?
I don't think so. What up? I'm inside.
You better think again, punk.
Katherine Massey Book Club rated R. Gus T. Renegade, worthless Negro from Virginia, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy, information for non-white people, victims of white supremacy. Today's date, Friday, August 1, 2025. So I have been told. This here, our sixth installment on Gregg Olsen's If Loving You Is Wrong. Picking up on chapter 47, we got rated R to start things off. Remember, he talked about that Mary Kay, she would have the jam sessions during recess. They would have little dance parties and things, and she'd go dance with Vili. Could have been dancing to R. Kelly at the same time period. They talked last week, said the teachers would see them holding hands and walking during recess and such. Say, hey, that doesn't look right. And I said last week, I imagine it's a Negro male teacher that they don't allow holding hands with Mackenzie. Blonde, 12-year-old white girl. And you think it's just, but hey, look here, Leroy, you know that don't even look at it. They used to lynch niggers for worse than that, less than that. Unhand Mackenzie. Now let's go. Get in here and teach the class. That's all it's going to be. Anyway, we heard at the very beginning, we've heard bits from the film before, All American Girl, the Mary Kay Letourneau story. Again, now this is told in flashback, so we heard from the very beginning she's been arrested. So she's already in greater confinement and telling how all this happened. So it kind of goes back and forth between flashbacks of their child rape. So we start off, we hear Vili's mother, C.O.W.S, Fualaau, where Mary Kay's white attorney is, hey, I know it's terrible, everything that happened, but Mary needs your help. We can't have her in greater confinement. She's a beautiful, blonde, perfect white woman, and come on. And Miss C.O.W.S, Fualaau says she didn't even apologize because she didn't do nothing wrong. We're going to hear that one later. We got multiple instances in this film of not Vili is a victim, Mary Kay is a victim. Now, this is one of many films where they get some old 18, 19, 20-year-old non-white actor to play Vili at 12 and 13. Multiple films do this. And the same thing they do with Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. They don't get age-appropriate children to play these non-white characters. They get Vili, or before we even get to the sex, we get Steve being an ogre, and he's brutalizing Mary about the phone bill, and we're broke and all that, and smashing glasses. Oh, my God, I'm a helpless blonde white woman. I'm a victim. The ogre Steve is going to kill me. Then when we get to the sex scene, and Vili forces himself on Mary Kay, basically, and, I got manly urges, and I've had sex before, and come here, white woman, where she basically gets raped, and she says, he didn't force me, but, Vili, he no child now. He's a manly man with manly urges, and he pursued me like a man. See, now they can do all that old lying, because you got a 19-year-old non-white actor to play Vili. It would be a much tougher sell. What? With a 12-year-old? What? Get out of here, man. She gets asked by her white attorney, did you feel like you were in control at anybody? Oh, no. I was almost, you might say, I was like a little girl in his manly, grown hands. Isn't that a disgrace? Isn't it a disgrace? Then he said he had the dominant sexual urges. He was 12. Can't even spell dominant sexual urges. Remember, her friends said they thought he was illiterate, so for reals, he can't even spell dominant sexual urges. Heathen Mary Kay. And then they get that scene come back after they have sexual intercourse, and Vili is riled up and feeling manly, and he goes to the school he doesn't even attend anymore and say, look here, Mary Kay, recess is over. You're my white woman. Get it together. I got manly needs, Mary Kay. Did that happen? Y'all dramatize. What in the world? And the white teacher sees this and goes and says, hey, that boy is going to be trouble. Them brown boys now. You better watch him, Mary Kay. She goes, oh, he's smart and intelligent. I just want to help. Same thing now. I told you he had in the book that teachers saw them slow dancing, saw her allowing Vili's brother to drive her car and all the rest of this. They either didn't say anything, or when they did go to say something, hey, man, watch it, Mary Kay. You can't be dancing, and that don't even look right. Not, you got to watch them brown boys. Now, wait a minute, Mary Kay. You could be dangerous. Mary Kay is the victim again. You even get that again at the end where Steve gets mad and is abusing her, and then he goes to confront that punk Vili at the she's my one. That's another one. He's 12. Why don't you just tell his mom? Call the police. He's 12. Oh, I'm going to go confront him, have a standoff, this punk. Anyway, that's when he get the pants. Steve going to wear the pants. I'm going to go confront a 12-year-old. We will get to it. And even, I thought it was so tacky. She said, it's Vili's idea for me to have sex with Steve, so that'll cover up our tryst. A 12-year-old concocted all of that deception? Really? Can't even spell manipulative, but he came up with that idea? Oh, I think he's smart. That's right, he's smart. He's smart and manly. Gregg Olsen, if loving you is wrong. Katherine, Massey Book Club, context of white supremacy.
Real nice and slow, yeah. Baby, let's slow dance right now.
Chapter 47. Some of the teachers at Shorewood Elementary felt they were in an emotional battle zone without a general, much less a sergeant, in command. It seemed that after the big to-do of the arrest, a 4-member crisis team of counselors, the promise of supporting teachers through the difficult time, and the ensuing media firestorm, for the most part district support vanished. The superintendent never came back. Said one teacher, embittered by the abandonment, "They brought the whole group in that first day to tell us and the children, and we did not see them once after that. We never heard from Nick Latham. We never heard from Susan Murphy. We never heard from a single person." District PR guy Latham later took issue with the notion that he hadn't offered ongoing support. "We gave the teachers every opportunity to share their feelings with us," he said. "I called the school and talked to Principal Ann Johnson many times about offers to help. I went through proper channels, through the principal and administration. It is possible, however, that the information didn't get to the teachers." The beleaguered teachers had been left to their own devices, while Highline administrators and others seemed to bask in the eye of the television camera. Nick Latham fielded inquiries from media outlets all over the world. Highline Education Association President Susan Murphy taped a segment of Dan Rather's 48 Hours on CBS. Even Highline Superintendent Joe McGeehan got in on the act. He appeared on NBC's Lisa. One person was missing in action on the PR front. Shorewood Principal Dr. Ann Johnson didn't pose for pictures or appear on television. In fact, the principal kept a very low profile, even among her staff. Yes, the somewhat aloof, petite woman with the cropped hair appeared shaken, but as the days passed, some contemplated if she was just upset for being caught with a mess in her own backyard. And even more troubling, as additional information was revealed to colleagues, some were left to wonder just how much their principal knew in the first place. Had Ann Johnson been made aware that Highline Security had been alerted about the Marina incident in June 1996? Had there been parent complaints? No one knew. Ann Johnson wasn't talking. Her only public remarks appeared in the district newsletter. "If anybody had known anything, why hadn't they come to me about it?" Dr. Johnson wrote when the wound was still fresh. But teachers had. Even though none ever had the slightest inkling that Mary Letourneau was engaging in any kind of sexual activities with a district student, and most assuredly would have turned her into the police in an instant if they had. They had noticed and complained about other behaviors in the past. Dr. Johnson also defended the district against some teachers' charges that they had been left to fend for themselves on the front lines. She said the administration was very aware of what was going on at Shorewood. She wasn't giving the teachers any information unless they asked about it. Food and cards came from different schools, so we knew people were concerned, but we never had support or concern from the district, not once, said a teacher from Shorewood. And they needed support in the most desperate way. They had children crying in class because of the stress of losing the beloved teacher in such a stunning and public way. Others acted out because they were mad at the replacement the district had hired. For a time, even the parents picked at the wound. One father said of the substitute that she was fine, but she was no Mary Kay Letourneau, recalled a teacher. Thank God she was no Mary Kay Letourneau. The goal of the Shorewood teacher group was just to get through the day and do their best to make sure that the children received the best education possible. No matter what had been disclosed that day, and every day seemed to bring another tawdry revelation, the teachers numbly went about their duties. When 9:05 arrived and the kids would come in, they'd put on a different face and pretend that nothing about Mary Kay Letourneau mattered at all. Trying, one said, to protect the kids from being hassled. The media intrusion was a hindrance to the educational process in ways that no school should have to endure. The media that was camped out on the street had been ordered to stay away from students. They could step on the sidewalk, but not 1 foot on the lawn, recalled a teacher. But they tried. They followed kids. They shadowed teachers as they walked into the building. Their satellite trucks sprang like oversized toadstools all along the street in front of Shorewood. One second grader came up to her teacher and pointed out the window to the television vans lined up. So we had this impromptu lesson. What's a good time to be on TV and what's not a good time to be on TV? What do people say when they don't want to talk? No comment. That's what you need to say. It upset the Shorewood teachers when Mary Letourneau's class photo and another taken by a teacher at camp found their way into the pages of magazines and newspapers. They were outraged when they learned that the district had given permission for their use. Weren't students supposed to be protected? Further irony came later when a national magazine published the class photo, and only Vili Fualaau's image had been blurred to protect his privacy. None of the other students had their identity obscured in any way. "I'm surprised no parent sued the district. I would have," said one Shorewood teacher. Instead of making matters better, the counselor at the school inadvertently fanned the flames, according to a teacher who witnessed her approach to the crisis. "Our own counselor was more of a problem," said the teacher. The counselor went before the students of room 39 and asked questions that led to nothing but pain for the woman who was trying to salvage the school year for the group abandoned by their beloved teacher's arrest. "What did you love about Mrs. Letourneau?" the young woman asked. The kids piped up with a litany of praise. She was fun, pretty, let them do what they wanted, lots of art, music, fun. "What do you hate about Mrs. New Teacher?" The kids didn't volunteer anything, so the counselor prodded them. "Is there anything you are doing in class that you don't like? Is there anything that Mrs. New Teacher is doing that you don't like?" Finally, the words came. "I don't see why we have to—" Other voices joined in, as the kids complained about the new order under Mary's replacement, the lessons, the extra work, all of it. Later, when the kids in the class had left for the day, a dumbfounded teacher who had witnessed the exercise berated the counselor for turning the students against the substitute teacher. How was that going to help the students move on? Other techniques at healing the wounds of the scandal only served to anger the remaining teachers even more. It particularly miffed some teachers when the counselor allowed Mary Letourneau's students to keep a notebook of the articles written about the love affair between teacher and student. The kids were told they could look at the contents of the binder any time they wanted, even when class was in session. Chapter 48. She never said it out loud because it would have hurt her friend so much. But the idea spun circles in Michelle Jarvis's head when she made her first trip to Seattle a day after Audrey was born. Where was someone, anyone, from Mary Kay's family? It was Michelle who had the duty of bringing Mary Kay home with her newborn daughter. "Where's her support system?" she asked herself. "I can't believe that I'm it. I'm the only one." If ever someone needed the love of a family, it was Mary Kay. She had been arrested, lost her job, run out of money, and was alone. Her 4 other children were dispatched to live in Alaska, Washington, D.C., and Tempe, Arizona, with relatives. Her hostile husband, living with his cousins in Bonnie Lake, was around enough to make things as uncomfortable as possible, and all Mary Kay had was Michelle Jarvis and Beth Adair. Mary Kay spent the first night out of the hospital with Beth, the music teacher from Shorewood. She hadn't wanted to spend the first night at home alone. Michelle came up and drove her to Normandy Park the next day. The house was a mess. The kitchen floor was so dirty it could have been plowed. Boxes were everywhere. Michelle cleaned up, filled the refrigerator, and made casseroles for the freezer. She tried to put some order back in Mary Kay's life. Things had slipped so far in the months since she became involved with the mystery student. Or had they? Michelle reminded herself that the only glimpses she'd had of Mary Kay's life with Steve in Seattle had been school pictures, and the orchestrated photographs of the family dressed in matching sweaters in front of a perfect Christmas tree nestled in a drift of gorgeously wrapped packages. This place was not only in utter disarray, it was dangerous, too. Carpet tack strips had been left along the walls and in the doorways from the day the Letourneaus decided they wanted to refinish the hardwood floors. When Michelle stepped on the tacks for the second time, she asked Mary Kay how she could live like that. Mary Kay shrugged it off. It wasn't a problem. "What about your kids? You let them run around the house like this?" Oh, they learned to avoid stepping on it. Miss Shell was astonished. A mother of 3, she wouldn't have dreamed of leaving such a hazard and having such a cavalier attitude about it. It would have taken only a couple of hours to pry off the most dangerous tacks, but Steve and Mary Kay hadn't bothered. There were other things that were much more important, she said later, which is kind of the Schmitz mentality. You keep up appearances at all cost. One other thing surprised and worried Michelle during her stay at the house in Normandy Park. Steve Letourneau was still around. Mary Kay had led her childhood friend to believe that Steve had already left the residence. But during the week that Michelle was there, Steve returned several times, and each time tension filled the air. Mary Kay repeated her concern that she feared additional rage when he saw the black hair and the olive skin. And at one point, Steve's anger at the situation and his apparent hatred for his wife frightened Michelle enough to pick up the phone and threaten to call the police. In many ways, Mary Kay was her own worst enemy. Maybe it had always been that way. But her defiance of the court order stipulating no contact with Vili troubled Michelle. Yes, Michelle could concede the two had feelings for each other, but feelings wasn't enough. Whenever Mary Kay got off the phone with Vili, Michelle met her with an icy stare and a word of warning. You are playing with fire, and you better knock it off. Mary Kay didn't care. She was going to do what she wanted to do. She deserved it. It was her chance at happiness. She ignored me like she always does, Michelle told a friend later. After a week of cooking, cleaning, and worrying, Michelle took Mary Kay and Audrey to a restaurant for a last meal together. After they ate, they watched the sunset and sipped Grand Marnier. Audrey slept soundly, and Michelle told her friend she thought she had been blessed with such a good baby. Both cried as they said their goodbyes. Mary Kay trusted that she'd never go to jail, and in time the whole problem would be sorted out. "I'll be all right," she said. There was a hole in the neighborhood when the Letourneau kids were gone, and never coming back. Ellen Douglas was left with the difficult task of supporting her son and daughter through a crisis that had reached out and abruptly snatched their best friends. She knew how tough Mary Kay's arrest had been on her son and daughter, but she knew that whatever their pain and confusion, it had to be 1,000,000,000-fold for Stephen, Mary Claire, Nicholas, and Jackie. With Audrey's birth and their parents' divorce inevitable, things had to feel very unsettling. Ellen would never forget how excited 10-year-old Mary Claire had been on the phone because she and her siblings were going to Washington, D.C. to go to school, and they were leaving right away. They'd be living with their Aunt Liz. After school was let out, they'd be visiting other relatives, including their fathers, in Alaska. I'm sure this is cool, Ellen thought as she listened to Mary Claire burble on about the new school without a clue about what was to come. But there's something going on that you haven't allowed to sink in. Life, as you know it, is falling apart. Ellen's daughter Jennifer didn't get it completely either. When Audrey was born, the little girl asked her mother if they could go see the baby. Ellen knew it was important for Jennifer to see Audrey because the infant was her daughter's best friend's new babysitter. The difficulty for Ellen was the fact that she was a schoolteacher in the Highline District, and she saw the pain that had resulted there because of Mary Kay's relationship with her former student. Concern for her daughter won out. Ellen picked out a lovely little outfit as a baby gift, and the pair went down the street. Cradling her newborn, Mary Kay welcomed mother and daughter inside. The house was eerie in its emptiness. Boxes and cartons bordered walls smudged by children who no longer lived there. A child's easel and plastic pool had been left behind in the carport. Talk centered on the baby's delivery, with no mention of the disintegrating family or the acts that caused it. We knew someone was there, Ellen said later, because she was not allowed to be alone. That was what the law said. She told us that it was her friend from California. We never saw the person. We were there twice. She said her friend was sleeping. The other time the shower was running the whole time we were there. Ellen later wondered if Mary Kay really had someone there, or if perhaps someone who wasn't supposed to be there was hiding out, waiting for the visitor to leave. Not long after Audrey was born, Mary Kay called Amber and Angie Fish to see if they could watch her newborn. She was required by the court to participate in some evaluations and treatment, and she wasn't happy about it. The twins were elated about the prospect of seeing the baby, partly because they loved Mary Kay, but also because their mother was so convinced that Audrey wasn't Steve Letourneau's. Mary Kay was running late when she breezed into the condo. Her baby was in an infant carrier hidden by a blanket. "Audrey's asleep," she said, dropping the diaper bag. "Here's her formula. She should sleep for a while." Then she left, leaving the baby covered up. Amber would never forget that visit and how she and her sister were dying to take a look under the blanket. We were all peeking under the blanket, but no one wanted to touch it. The minute she walked out the door, oh my God, there was Audrey, an adorable baby with a cap of black hair. Audrey didn't look anything like Steve, or even Mary Kay for that matter. The girls wondered if the baby's father had been black. With the coast clear and the moment too good to resist, Amber got out the video camera. "To show my mom," she said later. The girls called a few friends to tell them about the baby's coloring. "Can I come over to see Mary Kay's baby?" When Mary returned later, the girls hedged about what they really wanted to ask and commented on Audrey's black hair. "Doesn't she just have the greatest, darkest hair?" she said. "Yes," Amber said. "What is she?" Mary didn't bat an eye. "Samoan," she said. "Her middle name is Lokalani." The girls were still in shock, and later were unable to recall what Lokalani meant, though Mary explained the name's meaning and how it was perfect for her daughter. Neither did Mary say who the father was. She said nothing about the boy, whom she still did not name for the girls. For as long as the Fish twins had known Mary Kay and Steve Letourneau, they had been on a quest for the perfect couch. The one they had in Carriage Row was typical of many young couples. Before a house full of children, it had once been white, but after time it turned an unseemly, dull gray. Of course, at the Normandy Park address, a battered sofa would never do. Mary Kay told the twins that she had finally found her dream piece of furniture and special ordered a custom fabric. It was a floral tapestry with some pinks and blues and even some yellows. It wasn't cheap. Before it was shipped, Mary Kay said the furniture maker had told her that so many people commented on the unprecedented use of that fabric and how it came together with the style of the couch so magnificently. They couldn't believe it, she said. She was in love with the thing, Angie Fish said later. Good thing. For the summer of 1997, the sofa sleeper was Mary Kay's home base. She arranged it at an angle in the den, a small carpeted room that had 3 exits and clear sightlines to outside of the house, the front door, and the hallway. The room was dominated by sliding glass doors to the patio. She never closed the sofa. The hide-a-bed was never hidden. Everything was around her bed, Amber recalled. Diapers, dirty diapers sitting there, and she didn't get up to throw them away. She just kind of tossed them to the side. A constantly ringing phone in one hand, caller ID box at the ready, the remote control for the television in the other hand, Mary Kay sat at her command post. She was in a foxhole at the center of a storm of her own creation, and she seemingly loved every minute of it. She told the girls she used the caller ID to screen her calls, because a few weirdos were phoning and offering their support. They told her that they understood her because they had once loved what the law had forbidden, too. "I'm not sick like that," she said. "They think I'm on their level. I'm not one of them." Drifts of mail blanketed every surface of the room. A little hate mail, but mostly supportive missives. One time, Mary Kay pulled out a letter she said had been written by the students of her 6th grade class. She became teary-eyed as she read each loving word. During each of her visits, Amber Fish couldn't help but notice notes and lists written by Mary Kay and scattered throughout the house. Most were directed toward David Gerke and concerned areas that needed addressing for her defense. But she also posed questions better suited for a fortune-teller than a lawyer. When will Vili and I be back together? What will happen to Vili? Why can't Vili and I be together? The little notes were familiar to the Fish sisters. When they babysat for Mary Kay at the condo, the girls frequently saw little lists and notes that Mary Kay had used to organize herself and her thoughts. She was always a list-maker, Angie said later. Though she faced a more formidable adversary in the form of the King County Prosecutor's Office, Mary Kay focused much of her bitterness on her estranged husband. She was angered by the way friends and neighbors and then the public had taken his side by showing sympathy for the man now raising the kids on his own in Alaska. Mary Kay thought the image was a whole lot of baloney. At first, she refused to say much against him, other than express her disdain for his smugness and holier-than-thou demeanor. Every once in a while, however, she would lift the curtain slightly to expose what had been a very unhappy marriage and a philandering husband. "Well, there's a lot more here than you know," she told Amber Fish one day at the house. "Steve isn't all perfect, you know." Amber knew that. No one was. But as far as she could tell from where she was standing without a father, Steve Letourneau was one terrific dad. He had worked hard to support his family. He played with his children. And he pretty much did whatever Mary Kay told him to do. She, not he, was always the force in charge of their household at Carriage Row. Amber assumed things were the same at Normandy Park. But like a dripping faucet that no wrench could remedy, Mary Kay kept dropping hints until hints turned into shocking disclosure. She told the twins how he had beaten her when she was pregnant. Neither Angie nor Amber could really believe it. "Steve was never violent," Amber said sometime later. "We lived in that condo for years, and you could hear the disposal running, and we never could hear them fighting. You didn't even hear raised voices. Those walls were paper thin." Mary Kay told the Fish twins that Steve had cheated on her. In fact, she claimed he fathered a baby with a girlfriend before Audrey was born. "It's a boy," she claimed. "The mother is telling her husband that the baby is his, but it's not. I guess they look enough alike." The teenagers couldn't believe their ears. Not Steve. Not Steve, of all people, they thought. Though she talked mostly of Audrey, Mary Kay also spoke of her oldest children. It was Stephen, Mary Claire, Nicky, and Jackie who were suffering the most, having been yanked like rag dolls from their mother. Mary Kay felt Steve was doing his best to make sure that her oldest children were excised from her life. Forever. She was convinced that he was tossing her letters into the trash, screening her calls so the kids wouldn't have the opportunity to talk with their mom. Sobbing uncontrollably, Mary Kay told Amber about a phone call she had managed to place to the children when Steve wasn't around to intercept it. The minute Jackie got on the phone, she started screaming. It was like a scream that she was being murdered, like a scream I never heard. She wouldn't stop screaming because I wasn't there. Amber started to cry, too. No baby should be taken from her mother. It wasn't right. There were times when Mary would talk about her plans to regain visiting rights. She told the girls that her lawyers were going to fix it so that Steve couldn't live out of state. They'd have to live close enough to their mother so that she'd be able to take care of them. If she thought that she could do all of that, she sometimes let doubt creep in. Mary Kay was smart enough to know a losing battle, and she knew she had caused it. "I made a big mistake that hurt my family," she often said, "but I would never change it. I ruined my family. I'm hurting those I love." Amber and Angie both knew that Mary Kay meant every word she uttered. There was no fix for the mess, not when she felt so strongly that her love with the boy was worth it all. The love with the boy was forever. Audrey Lokalani was more than the daughter of Mary Kay Letourneau and Vili Fualaau. The baby with the dark eyes and black hair was also a sibling to Mary's 4 children by Steve. The adults on both the Schmitz and Letourneau sides did whatever they could to ensure that whatever impact this new baby would have on its mother, it would not ruin the lives of the 4 already born. All were in apparent agreement with the strategy, which included not talking about it and, heaven forbid, not promoting the fact that there was a new sibling back at their olive green house in Normandy Park. Mary Kay's sister Liz was very upset when they found a picture of Audrey that Mary Kay had sent back east for Mary Claire's birthday. Her sister was very unhappy. "I should have screened it. I should have made sure that something like that never got through." But Audrey was Mary Claire's sister, and she knew it. True sisterhood would take time, and who knew what words were said to make the kids feel differently, but a closeness would happen. Yet on the day of her great-granddaughter's birthday, even Nadine had to admit later, Mary Claire was happy because she had a baby sister. And back in the house in Normandy Park, in the bathroom where the family of 6 all used to converge in morning and evening chaos, Mary Kay, Vili, and Audrey posed in front of the mirror and took a photograph. The flash burned a bright hole in the center of the image, leaving only the tops of their heads to their eyes. "We didn't know it then," Mary Kay later said. but it was the only family portrait we'd ever take. Chapter 49. One day into the summer, when Angie and Amber were over helping Mary Kay take care of Audrey at the Normandy Park house, she stopped referring to the baby's father as the boy. "I guess I can tell you his name. Promise not to say anything to anyone?" They agreed. "Vili," she said. "Billy?" one of the girls asked. "No, Vili, with a V." She retrieved some pictures from another room and showed them to the sisters. They had done this with Mary Kay before. In fact, the girls considered it something that Mary Kay loved to do. She was forever looking at her children's pictures and remarking on their physical features, and whose side of the family was represented in their noses, mouths, hands, eyes. She pulled out a picture of Vili standing next to Stephen and Mary Claire by the swing. "This is really bad," she said, as if apologizing. "He's a lot older looking now." Angie studied the photo. The boy was taller than Stephen was, but not by much. When she heard he was Samoan, both she and her sister thought he was going to be some monster of a guy, 6'4" and 240 pounds. But he wasn't a linebacker type at all. At 5 feet 2 inches, he was lanky and gawky, and 4 inches shorter than Mary Kay. He was just a boy. The way she had described him, he was really big for his age. Mary Kay went on to tell the sisters about how she had wanted to get him into Cornish, a Seattle school for the arts. He interviewed and showed his portfolio there the summer she became pregnant. He was so talented and mature for his age. From the photograph, they couldn't see any of it. It was also the first time Mary Kay came out and acknowledged the obvious. The baby was Vili's. Although from that first look, Amber and Angie knew it wasn't Steve Letourneau's child, they never asked, and she never said anything. She also pulled out some pictures of Suna. "I can't tell who Audrey looks more like. Do you think she looks like—" She studied the photograph and looked at her baby. "She could have gotten this dark hair from my mother," she said. And then she suggested something that the girls would never forget. It was so strange. Mary Kay wondered out loud if Audrey could have picked up her dark hair from Steve's mother, Sharon. The girls thought that Mary Kay was totally out there. Steve's mother? What would she have to do with this baby? Mary Kay could be glib and laugh at the silliness of the media being camped outside her door, while she cradled a 14-year-old boy's first daughter. But inwardly, the stress of the situation was taking its toll. Shortly after Audrey was born, Mary Kay developed a rash on her face and consulted a dermatologist. Though the rash was barely visible, she was obsessed about it. "Is it getting better? Is it getting better?" she asked over and over. She also had fits of tears about her father's cancer. Her reaction was somewhat perplexing to the Fish twins. They, too, had known John Schmitz was battling cancer, and had been for some time. When Mary Kay first told them back at the condo, she was calm about it, almost indifferent. All of a sudden, the reaction was emotional. "I don't want all these family stories coming out," she said, refusing to elaborate. Only one of Mary Kay's children saw baby Audrey that summer, and by then, of course, there was no hope that any of her children could be raised with her love child. Even before the baby was born, it was inevitable that she would be a symbol of what had gone wrong with their parents' marriage. But she was also a sister. Only Stephen Letourneau, that summer between 6th and 7th grade, would see his baby sister. Mary told Amber and Angie Fish about how she had picked up her oldest son at SeaTac Airport. Audrey was asleep in a car seat. "You know Stephen," she said. "He was awkward and hardly talked to me. I know he's very upset with me. I know he's very mad at me. But when I put his luggage in my trunk, I sneaked a peek at him as he lifted up the blanket and saw Audrey." Mary Kay cried as she told the story. When she got behind the wheel, Stephen turned to her and said, "That's a cool little girl you have, Mommy." The story made the twins cry. They felt so sorry for Stephen and his siblings. Sorrier than they felt for Mary Kay and her mixed-up future. Stephen, they felt, had an especially heavy cross to bear. Stephen had been around Mary and Vili during the previous summer and fall. Stephen knew. He knew from the beginning. He knew everything, Amber said later. Ellen Douglas once called herself a que sera sera type person. Stuff happens. It just does. The idea that a teacher and a student could fall in love was not so impossible for Ellen to understand. She could see how it might happen with one huge reservation. The age difference was too bizarre to accept. She just couldn't see it. Maybe in a high school setting, but not an elementary teacher and her young student. Whenever she tried to rationalize what had happened between Mary Kay and Vili Fualaau, she always came back to the impact on the children involved. She never considered Vili part of that group. That child was never a child like Mary Kay's son and my son, she told a friend. That was not a little boy playing Legos and G.I. Joe action figures and wearing little ninja costumes and running around the neighborhood like our two little boys were. Vili Fualaau, as Ellen saw him, was not in the same league as other kids that shared his chronological age, at least none that she knew. It seemed that the 7th grader did what he wanted, whenever he wanted to. Obviously, with a father in prison, his family life was outside the norm of suburban Normandy Park kids. Since he was too young to drive, someone must have brought him over to the Letourneaus and left him there, at all hours and overnight. Ellen was convinced that members of the boy's family were aware that something was going on between Vili and Mary Kay. His family knew, she contended. It also became apparent to Ellen and others that a true double standard was evident in the Mary Kay Letourneau saga. The fact that it was a woman perpetrator and a young male victim, though novel and shocking, probably had less lasting impact than if the roles had been reversed. A 13-year-old girl getting pregnant is a heck of a lot different physically than a 13-year-old boy getting someone else pregnant. The physical difference of what happens to that child's body is different. It is a double standard. We are not equal. Introspection comes easily to a teenage girl's heart, but so does the willingness to believe in someone or something when the most obvious evidence points in another direction. Katie Hodgins had felt so very close to Mary and Vili, and had seen the signs of their closeness, the looks, the fleeting touch of their hands, that she was not surprised later when she learned the two had been intimate or had hooked up. It was always in the back of the sensitive girl's mind, like a closed door. She later imagined when she tried to explain it. A door that she had chosen to leave locked and boarded up. Always there, but always hidden. For Katie, keeping that door closed probably meant never getting hurt. Later, Katie considered that all that she had believed had been going on was a teacher trying to save a boy from his family, his past, and a future that was dark and without room for all that he could be. She wanted to help him because he needed the help and she needed the help. He could help her and she could help him. And their souls just like matched. He was her best friend and she was his best friend. Look at them talking. It was just perfect, once-in-a-lifetime thing. Steve Letourneau wanted the whole thing to end. His wife had flung their dirty laundry all over the country, and the sooner it was put to rest, the better. He told his lawyer that while he wanted closure, he didn't want Mary Kay to go to jail. Gregg Olsen told Steve that he doubted such an outcome from the very beginning. He was sure as a first-time offender she'd get a treatment program. Even so, he had doubts as the summer progressed that Mary Kay Letourneau was really a good candidate for any kind of special program. He told Steve that he doubted she was a threat to their children and that she was unlikely to be involved with any boy other than Vili. Gregg felt his client's wife had some kind of emotional problem that prevented her from remaining in control. It wasn't a love-at-first-sight type of thing. It was a drawn-out process where Mary Kay could have just drawn the line. You're a 13-year-old child, and it's not going to happen. Gregg Olsen was also alarmed by Mary Kay's insistence that she was still in love with Vili. She appeared to be using love as a defense. Honesty is a defense of slander, so love should be a defense of child molestation. You can't put me in jail because I really do love him. That's just not the way the law works. Chapter 50. She dreaded the day that she'd pick up the phone and it would be Steve Letourneau calling. Even though secret squirrel Linda Gardner had done what she felt was right, she knew that her actions led to the breakup of her husband's cousin's home, happy or not, such as it was. Kyle Gardner had been in contact with Steve not long after the arrest, and he had kept his wife up to date. But it wasn't until April that the phone rang at 10 p.m. and Steve's voice was on the line. Fear overwhelmed her and her heart sank. Before she could say anything, and she didn't know what it would be anyway, Steve took up the slack on his end of the line. "Linda," he said, "I just want to let you know that you got me out of this nightmare, and I want to thank you for it." Linda didn't know what to say. "Yeah, you want to talk to Kyle?" she asked, before setting down the receiver and looking for her husband. Over the next few days the two would talk more, Linda listening at first, then offering advice. She thought it was ridiculous that Steve was still living there with his pregnant-by-a-sixth-grader wife. And why was he staying? The place was being foreclosed. It wasn't as though he was going to be living there after the law did whatever it was going to do with his wife. She understood from talking with Steve and Kyle that things were getting violent in Normandy Park. "You've got to get out of the house," she said during one of their conversations that spring. "Come here and stay with us. If you don't, you're going to get thrown in jail." Steve finally admitted that Secret Squirrel was right. It would be better than hanging around while Mary Kay had her baby. And while her own mother-in-law would not forgive her, it seemed that once everything was out in the open among members of Steve Letourneau's family, Linda was not completely alone. Steve's mother and grandmother both made calls of support to thank her for taking care of the Mary Kay problem. She knew Mary Kay and Steve hadn't kept the cleanest house. Linda Gardner recalled the time one of their children was missing at Carriage Row, and it was discovered that the toddler had fallen asleep in a pile of debris on the sofa. Linda remembered tiptoeing through the clutter, but she didn't think that was as bad as what her husband Kyle described when he helped Steve Letourneau move from Normandy Park to their home in Bonnie Lake just before Mary Kay had her baby. It wasn't just a case of packing boxes and moving them to storage. According to her husband, more than a half-dozen trips to the dump were necessary. "They even threw away a couch," Linda said later. "Steve had absolutely nothing when he left that house. It was all trash." Kyle couldn't believe how bad it was. And yet Steve and Mary Kay had always seemed so neat. Linda couldn't figure it out. Something's not right. Not right with her. Not right with Steve. How can you be so filthy at home, but when you are around everybody you don't have a scrap of dirt on you? You're perfect. She asked Steve about it not long after he moved in with the Gardners that spring. He told me that he would come home from work and he just gave up because she would do nothing. She would not do any housework. They had a rat in the house. It was filthy. They lived in filth, she said later. Linda didn't want to rub salt into the wound, so she kept her mouth shut. But still she wondered, how was Mary Kay going to bring this baby home to that house? How could these kids live like that? When things became more relaxed and she felt she could pry a little, Linda asked her houseguest why he didn't just boot his wife out the door when he confirmed the involvement with the boy. Steve said he just couldn't. Too many people were involved and he was afraid. He didn't know what to do, how to handle it. He knew she'd go to prison. "She's the mother of my children," he repeated. That didn't wash with Linda. When she started having sex with someone the same age as her son, she gave up the right to be the mother of your children, she retorted. Later, when Linda would try to describe Steve's state of mind at the time, he was so wishy-washy, so non-committal, that it was impossible. "I think that he thought that possibly this would go away and they would be living their lives," she said. Over the course of the next few days and weeks, the story would unfold, and Linda would become increasingly satisfied that she had done the right thing. Steve said Mary Kay had admonished their children to keep quiet about Vili's overnight visits. "If you tell anybody, Mommy will go to prison." He showed copies of the love letters he had found. "So here we are. We had a dream. It was a once-upon-a-time fairy tale story about two people that were meant to become one, and did." In one missive, Mary Kay lamented how she couldn't show her love for Vili in public, couldn't call him, couldn't show off their devotion to each other. "But each day something new happens to me, and I always want to tell you." Linda later described some of the letters as depicting Mary Kay and Vili as lovers from another plane, another dimension, and another time. God, they believed, had a plan for them, and that plan included a baby. Linda thought the notes were twisted and sick. "I also told them that this wasn't just sex and an accidental baby." Later, Linda fumed about the letters. She knew that this baby would keep them together forever. They set out to make this love child. He was talking about how he loved her, how they were destined to be together, and her letters were the same. Steve talked about phoning Mary and John Schmitz to tell them what was going on with their daughter long before she was arrested. They wanted to get Mary Kay out of Washington and moved to Washington, D.C., but she wouldn't do it, Linda recalled Steve telling her. Her mother wouldn't talk to her, totally wrote her off. The dad came out and brought her a car. Then he went back, and the parents were not supportive of her at all. In time, Linda would piece together what she thought was the real reason why Steve passively sat by as his wife got involved with a student. He was busy with his own affairs. He even fathered a child with one of his flings. And Linda, in her best secret squirrel mindset, figured that Mary Kay hung that over his head and threatened him. If you tell, if you leave, I will let everybody know all about this stuff. And there was Kelly Whalen, too. Kelly, the flight attendant from Alaska Airlines, was the woman with whom Steve was planning his post-Mary Kay future. He talked about Kelly and how wonderful she was, and how he couldn't have made it through the ordeal without her. He told Linda they had met on a trip to Puerto Vallarta. He didn't tell her what was going on with his wife, but he wanted out of his loveless marriage. I don't agree with him having an affair, Linda said later. If my husband ever had one, I'd pull a Lorena Bobbitt on him. A girlfriend of Mary Kay Letourneau's, who went to the Shorewood open house in the fall of 1996, witnessed a slightly hostile exchange between a man, possibly another teacher, and Mary Kay. She told Linda about it later. According to the friend, she was in the classroom when the man walked up to Mary Kay and said, "You are getting way too close to Vili." Then he walked off. Whenever they met at his Tacoma office or talked on the phone, divorce lawyer Gregg Olsen always found Steve Letourneau to be true to form in one critical regard. Steve remained entrenched in his position that he wouldn't get caught up in the blame game that had been part of the Mary Kay Letourneau saga from day one. Yes, he was pissed off at his wife for dumping him for a kid. Without a doubt, he was humiliated and bitter. But deep down, there was some guilt. Pointing the finger at his dewy-eyed wife was not a good strategy. It only made Steve Letourneau look like a bully kicking her when she was down. He couldn't exempt himself from it 100% anyway, Gregg Olsen said later. So rather than trying to figure out what percentage is his and what percentage is Mary Kay's, he doesn't want to blame Mary Kay in public. He had played a part in what happened, and despite what his critics would say, Steve Letourneau knew it. "You know," he admitted to his lawyer, "I could have done things that could have stopped this." But Steve wasn't paying attention, or he was burying his head in the sand during the months his wife carried on with Vili Fualaau. Maybe he was too wrapped up in what he was doing with his girlfriend to step in and save his wife and family from the inevitable min. Hindsight was a killer, and Steve knew it. According to his lawyer, Steve had seen hundreds of things that indicated what had really been going on with Mary Kay and Vili. He just refused to believe it back then, Gregg Olsen said. He feels bad about it. He blames himself a little bit for that.
Katherine Massey Book Club rated our first installment all done. We'll pick up chapter 51 for the second installment. The number to dial 720-716-7300, the code 564-943 #. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The number again, 716-720. Wait a minute, messed up the phone number. At least got to get the phone number correct. 716-720-7300. The code 564-943 #. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The email untiljustice@gmail.com. Make sure I give the number correctly again, 720-716-7300. 300, decode 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. I did the same thing I did last week. We had a young lady write in her commentary for the book club, and you had so many folks participate that I got confused about all of the folks who wrote in, so I neglected to share her email from last week. So I had to go back and make sure I get it in this week. Okay. The one that I missed. Hi, Gus, Cal's audience. Number one. Okay, having read a bit further into the book, I'm now 100% clear that the author sees nothing wrong, Ara, with child rape, and the title of this book is telling us if loving you is wrong. We can finish the sentence ourselves. Mary Kay raped a 12-year-old, which is a crime. Calling it anything else is an attempt to groom the public into accepting child rape as normal and acceptable, which I think we heard some of that in the text this week where they said other people, some of her Mary Kay supporters, say, yeah, we agree with you, Mary Kay. 12, you can consent at 12. 11, 10, really grown. Love is love. The book, the movie, the Barbara Walters interview, and other media interviews are designed to brainwash white people hiding their deviance in plain sight. 2. The author labors Stacy's disclosure process as though there's something wrong in doing the right thing, contacting the authorities to put a stop to child rape. It's not explicitly stated, but that's the message the reader should take away. Lots of all that no snitching that went on here, like, come on. 3. Gus, I believe you and one of the callers said that Mary Kay saw nothing wrong with a little bump and grind on Vili. I think she understood the incorrectness, just didn't care. She was skillful in her word usage, attempting to justify her actions, but she knew it was wrong. Her needs and wants were uppermost in her mind. Vili didn't count. 4. There were echoes of Lacey Schwartz, Little White Lie. Remember her? She was a guest on the program. 2014. Oh my God. Non-white female with one white parent, one black parent. She lied to us flagrantly and told us that the white people that she lived around accepted and thought she was white. That is a total lie that is contradicted in her film. But her white mother was cheating on her white dad with some Negro male and got pregnant, and they just lied and said, oh yeah, you're like the rest of us. And then they wait until she's 18 or something, say, oh yeah, I guess we should tell you your mom was, doing the old man. Now, she wasn't raping a child, I don't think. This was a grown black dude, but still. Don't see nothing wrong. Anyway, there was echoes of Lacey Schwartz, Little White Lie film in this story. White woman raping a non-white person, having that non-white male in her home with the rest of the family, including the husband, giving birth to a non-white child. The difference being that Mary Kay didn't try to bamboozle Steve Letourneau into thinking the child was his. That was Lacey Schwartz's mother, white mother. Said, yes, this is your baby. Yes. She just says that olive skin Mediterranean-ness in our family. That old, woo, man. What does it mean to be white? Much obliged. Catching up on our emails. Until justice @gmail.com. The number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. I know one question or thought I have, and it could just me. I'm an old patriarchal, sexist, toxic, privileged black male. But, Steve, I don't empathize with Steve. I don't feel bad with Steve. I don't feel like no kindred spirit with Steve. But I do think there is a lot of, they just said, Steve, I'm guilty in this too, and I'm having affairs and stepping out on old Mary Kay, and I'm sleeping with the folks that I'm working with at the airport and getting other folks pregnant and yum, yum, yum. A whole lot of people commit adultery, infidelity, as they say. That does not mean the aggrieved person who was cheated on, I now get to go out and rape children because I have suffered through this, horrible breach in our relationship, so I need some sort of compensation, comfort, emotions. Rape a 12-year-old? Like, do what? And even when they get in the old, well, Steve was abusive and he beat on her, and he said that last week, smacked her around, and thought he might even kill Mary Kay. I think some of the listeners thought that too. And it might be I'm just giving short shrift to that because this is a white woman, race soldier, and I'm not empathetic of her and her abusive relationship if it was that. But she's such a skillful liar. I just don't like, oh, he's beating up on a pregnant woman. Oh, he was having an affair. Oh, I just don't feel that. And plus, I've had not a whole book. At least we're halfway through the book now. We've had a whole half of a book of white people saying that Steve is lame and he don't wear the pants in the family, and Mary runs the household and she tells him what to do and he just listens and does whatever she says. If that is the case, it's hard for me to then come back and say, man, this Steve was just an ogre and he just smacked her around and wench, hit me a sandwich, clean up this house, get that brown boy out of here. I mean, that at minimum, and I'm not saying that you can't be abusive and also not wear the pants in the family and be indecisive as they said Steve was, but I don't know. You don't get no sympathy from Gus T on the, oh man, Nicole Brown Simpson and Mary Kay, we got all these blonde, battered beauties. Oh, what a disgrace. What can be? Can we get OJ and Steve Letourneau? Can we get them on a poster? And no domestic violence, brother. No means no. You get some counseling, and even if your wife is sleeping with the brown boy, you keep your hands to yourself. I just thought it. I'm not saying he didn't do it. I'm just saying I don't have no empathy, and old lying Mary Kay, I could see her using this to garner sympathy because she was saying the whole time, I don't think the most important thing in this to be concerned about is, man, Steve ain't no angel. That's some baloney about Steve being a good guy. Steve ain't no good guy. You know how many affairs, and he's sleeping with that bimbo at SeaTac. Push me around here. I'm pregnant. He manhandling me, mad because I got the olive-skinned, black-haired, mop of shiny black curls on the child's head, and he running around mad. Steve ain't no nice guy. He ain't no all-American dude. I just don't think that's the most important thing. Like, what I'm saying? Steve, if Steve had done right and loved on me right, I wouldn't have had to run to Brown Vili's manly arms. That's almost what it sounds like to me. Like, man, get out. You and race soldier Steve, both of y'all can get out of here. How about that? Beaten up. But I say, they say I'm a toxic, patriarchal, sexist, privileged black dude. So, me and Steve might be cut from the same patriarchal cloth. So let us know. What do you, Steve, is he an abusive? Am I cutting short shrift? Should we get Mary some slack because she got this old domestic violence thing? And, what? You can let me know. Let's see. 720-716-7300. The code 564-943#. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Folks who dialed in with a hand up line should be open. Proceed. Lauren, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Evening, everyone. So at the beginning of this session, chapter 47, you know what? I think it was something from the audio that you played before it got started that I want to comment on. When Mary Kay was asked the question, do you think as the adult you were in control? That's the doctor to Mary Kay in the All-American Girl movie. And she said, no, Vili pursued me as a man pursues a woman. He had the dominant sexual needs. I gave in to him. I mean, this suspected racist, convicted rapist, even in the movie, Mary Kay was on top when the sex occurred. So, again, she was literally on top. And I think, I don't know, I think that matters. So on to this week's session. They were talking about the principal, and they said that some of the teachers at Shorewood Elementary, hold on, this is the wrong part. It says, if anybody had known anything, why hadn't they come to me about it? This is what the principal says. Dr. Johnson wrote when the wound was still fresh, but teachers had, even though none had even the slightest inkling that Mary Letourneau was engaging in any kind of sexual activities with a district student, and most assuredly would have turned her into the police in an instant if they had. I don't think they would have turned Mary Kay into the police in an instant if they had known. I think there was like maybe 10 or 20 white people, who knows, it could have been 30 or more, white people who knew about what was happening, and only one of them reported Mary Kay, and that was that lady called Secret Squirrel in the text. Her name is Linda Gardner, I think. Let me see. Further irony came later when a national magazine published the class photo and only Vili Fualaau's image had been blurred to protect his privacy. None of the other students had their identity obscured in this way. It seems like the author wants the reader to be, I don't know, outraged or something that they blurred Vili's picture and not the other student. That's just super interesting to me. Let me see. It particularly missed some students when the counselor allowed Mary Letourneau's students to keep a notebook of the articles written about the love affair between teacher and student. The kids were told they could look at the contents of the binder anytime they wanted, even when class was in session. That seems highly inappropriate to me. Let me see. There were several sections that made me, they're just like, oh, Mary Kay, she's having such a hard time. You know, she's been arrested, lost her job, run out of money, and she was alone. Oh, poor Mary Kay. When Michelle comes, this is after Mary Kay has the baby, Michelle flies in, and she takes Mary Kay back to her residence. She says the house was a mess. The floor was so dirty, it could have been plowed. Boxes were everywhere. She said it said Michelle cleaned up, filled the refrigerator, and made casseroles for the freezer and tried to put some order back into Mary Kay's life. And it also said Michelle reminded herself that the only glimpse that she had of Mary Kay's life with Steve in Seattle had been school pictures and the orchestrated photographs of the family dressed in matching sweaters in front of a perfect Christmas tree nestled in a drift of gorgeously wrapped presents. So they probably cleaned up one section of the house just enough to take the picture, and people don't have any idea just how filthy the residence is, which is crazy. They had those carpet tack strips down, which that is dangerous. Her kid, and she had small children. They could have really injured themselves on that. Let me see. They talked about that black hair again and the olive skin on that baby. Even the little white girls, the twins who would watch the baby, they questioned if the father was classified as black, which, I guess that would have been even worse. Lokalani, they didn't remember what Lokalani meant, but I did a Google, and it says it's a Hawaiian name, and it means heavenly rose. I thought it was weird the way they put so much on so much focus. Not they. Mary Kay put so much focus on this. I don't want to use profanity. Couch. And they talked about the colors and the upholstery, and it wasn't cheap and all of this stuff. Your house is getting foreclosed on, and you're buying this crazy expensive couch. And it made me think of something similar happened when she was younger, where her mom had a couch with some expensive upholstery that was however many dollars per yard, and it just seems like a really silly thing to focus on with all of the other stuff that is going so poorly in her life. She's sitting on the sofa and just throwing dirty diapers off to the side. Ugh. Like, so many things, when they describe the residence, it just sounds so gross to me. And it said a few weirdos were phoning and offering their support. They told her that they understood her because they had once loved what the law had forbidden too. And she said, well, I'm not sick like that. They think I'm on their level. I'm not one of them. But she was. Like, you're having sex with a child too. That's the same thing. I would like to point out, because of what you said before this, the twins didn't believe that old Steve was violent with Mary Kay. But it did seem like when he moved in with Linda Gardner, wherever they were in Bonnie Lake, that he thought, or he might have admitted to some violence. So I don't know, because I kind of didn't believe it, but it seemed like he admitted to it a little bit. If I get to that part, I'll try to point it out. Let me see. Oh, someone else said, hold on, Ellen Douglas, I think it was. Whenever she tried to rationalize what had happened between Mary Kay and Vili Fualaau, she always came back to the impact on the children involved. She never considered Vili part of that group. That child was never a child like Mary Kay's son and my son. Wasn't right. That, give me a second. Okay. All right. That child was never a child like Mary Kay's son and my son. That was not a little boy playing Legos and G.I. Joe action figures and wearing little ninja costumes and running around the neighborhood like our two little boys were. Vili Fualaau, as Ellen saw him, was not in the same league as other kids that shared his chronological age, at least none that she knew. It seemed that the seventh grader did what he wanted whenever he wanted to. Obviously, with a father in prison, his family life was outside the norm of suburban Normandy Park kids, white children. Since he was too young to drive, someone must have brought him over Turnos and left him there at all hours and overnight. Ellen was convinced that members of the boy's family were aware that something was going on between Vili and Mary Kay. His family knew she contended. And I thought, wow. It's almost like she's blaming the non-white people for Mary Kay having sex with that little boy, Vili. Also, she won't even acknowledge he's a little boy. She said he wasn't like my son. I just think that means he wasn't white. Mary Kay said honesty is a defense of slander, so love should be a defense of child molestation. You can't put me in jail because I really do love him. That's just not the way the law works. Now, I don't want to use profanity, but what the F is she talking about? It was more talk about how filthy the house was when Secret Squirrel's husband went over there to help Steve move out. They had to make more than 6 trips to the dump, and that's just throwing away trash. It's so much deception, and so many people acting like they're surprised about what Mary Kay said and what she did. Those were obviously 2 different things, and that's all I have for now. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Love. It's in the book 300 times. Love. They put that in the movie, too. Mary Kay say, wait a minute. This can't be a crime. I love me. I think they dramatized it exactly that way. Vili's a man, and I love him. They said, well, I don't think the law recognizes love as a mitigating factor in child rape. And then they proceeded to, conviction and all that stuff. And, woo! Love. Great point as well she made that whole passage that I highlighted where, you know, this brown fella, he ain't no child like our children. You don't run around with the G.I. Joe. You get a gun and go be a soldier. You can go blow up something. Be Chris Kyle. That's G.I. Joe, right? G.I. Jane, right? And you want a little boy like, And it seems like we've heard a lot of that throughout the book. Like, Vili's a gangster and a thug. And Mary Kay said, he's not told you simple-minded folks. Vili ain't no child. He's a grown man. He's a manly man with manly needs. That's why they called it All-American Girl. She said, if it was a child here, it wasn't Vili. It was me. Vili, a grown man. You heard him last week. He out strong-arm robbing people for their Fila jackets. You heard him. Vili's a gangster and a thug and a punk. Anything but a 12-year-old victim of rape. Anyway, I did hear that as well, where it did seem like Steve did acknowledge he had probably done some abuse, hit her, whatever the case may be. And Linda said, you know, you need to get out of there because you're going to end up in jail. So it seemed like she agreed. So maybe we'll leave it likely that there's some domestic abuse and such. I just added, hey, you, Gus T, toxic, sexist, patriarchal, black fella. First time, last time. But I just, Mary Kay is so deceptive. Like, you had to show me a whole lot of photos and stuff. And like, woo. Anyway, let's see. Retired firefighter. I mean, photos, it would have to be Mary Kay been brutalized and beaten down and all the rest of it. It had to be like Nicole Brown Simpson, because they did the photos and all that. Remember we read OJ? It had to be something like that. And even then, let's see. Retired firefighter in Florida should be with us as well.
Yes, sir. Greetings, everyone. First thing I would like to include is that in my almost 30 years as a firefighter, the majority of our calls are medical emergencies. And I have been in a lot of white people's homes. And by far, their homes were the most filthiest, dirtiest, poor-smelling residence that I've ever been in. Second place wasn't even close to, whereas in some occasions we had to have on our breathing apparatus before we enter into some of these homes. So I can identify with what the book is saying about her house, but it is synonymous with a lot of white people. Just like to include that if somebody else didn't know about it. Starting off, the principal, they said that the principal kept a low profile. Yeah, I said to myself, yeah, she better keep a low profile because she is responsible for this tragic situation, and some of the other administrators at that school and possibly some of the teachers are responsible for it. Looking other way or giving some sly comments on it as though, you know, a crime wasn't taking place. I was wondering, and y'all can tell me later, was the sub a white person or a non-white person? And I'll move on. They mentioned about the TV news, you know, following people around. Well, you know, especially an activity of sex attracts a lot of viewers on television. So I can see this was super attentive by a lot of people on the news, and especially in the state of Washington, I would say. I have here the whole process after Mary's arrest in relations to her students was terrible and probably criminal, which goes to show you not just Mary Kay, but there's a lot of white people that goes for this tragic situation that we are reading about. They either are in alliance with it, or in some other way, joined to it, saying it's all right. I would say not obeying court orders is typical behavior of a lot of white women. They consider to be above the law. Think about it. The racist white supremacist males are attached to them. They're attached to each other, from a political and also an emotional sense. So they figure that they don't have to abide by laws like others do. Others mean non-white people. From just listening and taking notes, I just wrote down, this is disgusting, the behavior of white people over Mary Kay's baby, acting as though raping a 13-year-old, committing adultery is perfectly normal behavior. Like I said before, it wasn't just Mary Kay. You would have thought it was a gainfully married couple where the wife was producing their baby, and with the children, that everything was like a storybook, that's disgusting. I have here that child should have never been in her custody. Right after this, as soon as she let that child out of her vagina, or if they cut it out of her, it should have been captured by the state. It should have been offered to the grandmother. Offered to the grandmother. I'm talking about on the side of Vili. I thought his name was Billy until the last reading. Or that, and had the total care that the state of Washington can render to such a person that comes on the planet Earth. She should be supervised with her prior children on a constant basis, wearing and be made to wear that orange jumpsuit, and on the back in big bold letters, prisoner, on the back of it. The child should have been offered I've said that already. Well, after being offered to the grandmother, then it would be a choice that the child could be in the custody of the father when he turned around 21 years old. That to me would be just and most correct thing. Regardless of, I was listening to some of the differences between male and female from a biological standpoint. I said to myself, fine and good, but the results should be the same as far as care and justice. As far as somebody who's being mistreated, male or female, that was in that type of situation. I'm gonna pile into the word, the 4-letter word, love. How can love be accurately defined in a court of law? I got down here as an example. I killed him because I loved him so much. It can't be defined in court. As far as my understanding would be. Last but not least, Mary Kay's secret meetings were planned by her to continuing to brainwash the child that she raped, who did not have sufficient mental care. That's basically what she was doing, and had support from a contingency of other white people. And that's all I have to say. Thanks for listening.
Love. L-O-V-E. Love. Hang that on all kinds of nonsense. That is wild that that's another one. If you switch this around, so if Leroy was the teacher, he was 35, we'll say, and Mackenzie white 13-year-old female, and he got her pregnant. Anywhere in the world, this is working through the legal process and all the rest of it. Anyway in the world, Leroy get visitation? Leroy get to come hang out? Hey, Leroy Jr., look at that. Come on. Come on. Come on. Let's see. I do want to make sure I add in. We did have, I forgot who it was last week, but they said, I'm surprised Mary Kay wasn't killed. Because they were saying, they have a white man say, my God, I got this brown baby with mop of slick black curls, and I'll kill you, you white wench. I do remember someone saying that last week, so it seemed they also thought, Steve might have went upside her head, being mad about all this, and it, might even take it you violated the white code, and embarrassed me as a white man. Any hoodles. Let's see. Folks who dialed in. Victim in New Jersey with us as well. *61 for other folks with commentary.
Hey guys, be real brief. I was just thinking about, I've heard people make the comparison to Swango, and I see it now. Just the mediocreness. Definitely, it's not even a word, but just how mediocre she was, and how they tout her as this great teacher, and even with the incompetence of the school system, that it seemingly they knew or had an idea that something was going on with this woman as it relates to her misconduct with a child, and they did nothing. So, I wonder if, if how long this would have took place, if other people didn't get suspicious and alert the authorities. This could have went on for like quite a while. She, even with the interrogation of the students, when they had the students make a comparison on what they liked about this pedophile and the new teacher. And like I said last week, I said that this wasn't a good teacher. This was just a teacher who just allowed these students to do what they wanted to do, and she treated them as if they were her peers. So even with the filthiness of her home, that was already brought up. And even with that, it's not spoke about as if it was, if this woman is disgusting. I think they're trying to frame it like this is a woman that might just be going through a bout of depression. She's going through a lot. So, the dirty diapers all over the place, the filthy home, it can be diagnosis, depression. That's what I think the author is trying to have the reader lead the reader to believing or seeing as it relates to how this woman is not keeping up with the home. And, again, it's classic reminiscent of Swango, so, and I believe like this woman, let's just say if she was able to some way, somehow get out of this, and there wasn't no criminal convictions, I think this woman would have just been able to get another job in another school system and violate another child. So that's what I believe. And I'll close.
They said, wait a minute now, victim in New Jersey. What you mean, rape another child? I done told you. We keep saying, you simple-minded folks, love. I don't just go around here groping and fondling any old brown boy in the classroom. I love me some Vili. What you mean go get another job and find another 12-year-old and commence the grooming, and I love me some Vili. Man, come on. Let's see. Get email number 2. I do believe victims relate to this reading because we have all been negatively affected by this nation's education system. For example, chapter 29 on is a blueprint for the global system of white supremacy, with Mr. Olsen laying out events, hearsay, and outlandish actions only white people could get away with. However, the participants of this study continue to brilliantly examine, shred, and recognize what makes sense. Force me to order this book today. I used to say it a lot. Maybe I should say it more. We should try not to purchase these books that white people have written. We should try really hard. We can get used books. They have tons of pirate ebooks available online. Even a number of dark people, non-white people, have fussed at me for saying that. Hey, you can purchase black people's books. I do. You can purchase victims of racism's books. I do. We had a black author on the program this week. All that said, I try to work really hard to not purchase books that white people have written. You can go to the library, as I said, ebooks, lots of different ways, but I don't think white people should make money for practicing racism or even calling themselves writing accurately about racism. And yeah. Anyway, Gregg Olsen, this is an old-timey book, so you can get a copy of this one easily for free, like I did. Retired firefighter from Florida, who we just heard from, pointed out that the teacher abuse is reported on a weekly basis, and I'm in agreement with Irie that the author's writing bends towards wanting to be Mary Kay, or it could be his particular function in this system. Born in Seattle, and raising a family in the state of Washington as a true crime aficionado probably influences his thinking, but shouldn't excuse the positioning of text, characters, or truth behind the story. Your reference, Mr. Renegade, to the white woman who drove the non-white kids over a California cliff was exactly my reflection throughout Part 5. That actually is the two white women, yes. Along with the white doctor who took his version of love to Africa. That's Swango, by the way. Mentioned by multiple listeners, there is more than enough evidence to determine abuse is an ever-present pattern of white culture. Lastly, I want to encourage everyone to revisit the archives, and specifically Mr. Renegade's interview with Dr. T. Hassan Johnson for a valuable lesson in the education of our young people. That's like 2021, maybe 2020, 2021. If Loving You Is Wrong should not only be mandatory reading for students in public education, but embedded directly into school districts' curriculum for all the reasons discussed in the Katherine Massey Book Club rated R for today. Much obliged. You know, I'm going to have to investigate. Do they teach this book here in Seattle? I would lose my mind if my child came home and said, our senior class is reading If Loving You Is Wrong. We would have to take like a field trip. I would be so excited. Like I would go to class just to sit and listen. Like, how do they teach this here in Seattle? If they do, can you get this like at Garfield High School? Is this book in the like school library? At Shorewood, is this book in the school like WTH, man? Do they teach about Mary Kay in King County schools? Like, come on. Let's see. Lost my notes. Okay, here we go. Back up to 47. I think even if they don't teach it in the schools here, which they should, you should definitely, like, man, if I had a child on summer vacation, man, it might even have to be if they were 12 years old or up. They might have to read this book. Obviously, they got the audio book. They can listen to the audio book, and we can discuss. We can read it together and discuss. That'd be one summer project. Be mandatory if we lived in Washington State. Like, you gonna know all about Mary Kay Letourneau. Let's see, chapter 47. 48 Hours. Dan Rathers came out here. Lisa. I've heard a lot of these shows for like Columbine and other cases, O.J. Simpson, other cases, true crime that we've covered. Man, they had the sentencing in the Sade C. Robinson murder trial today. 48 Hours is about to get that too. Like, man, they've been around forever. Let's see. So the principal, Miss Johnson, Dr. Ann Johnson, white woman, retired firefighter, and he asked the question about the substitute. He said, do we think the substitute teacher was white or non-white? Olsen already told us that all of the teachers were white. I would assume that means substitutes, and I would hope so, because that would really stand out if all of the regular full-time salary teachers are white, and then when we get a no-count sub, it's Leroy or Lakeisha. WTH. Like, that would stand out even more. But he said all the teachers were white. He didn't tell us. I don't remember that any of the subs were non-white specifically, so I'm going to stick with what he said. All the teachers, white. Let's see. So Ann Johnson, principal, how much did she know about this? Did she know about that Marina episode that starts the book and blah, blah, blah? We've heard so many white people were aware and didn't snitch. So she would just be one in a large group of people who followed the white code. Let's see. They said if they had known she was having sexual activities, they would have snitched. I don't believe that. Let's see. We heard this. They said she wasn't giving the teachers any information unless they asked about it. Food and cards came from different schools, so we knew people were concerned, but we never had support or concern from the district. Now, once again, white people, we got your back. They get roast beef sandwiches by the crate up at the school, and we're going to look out for the white people. Again, did he get a slice of roast beef? A Starbucks gift card? Anything? Okay. Let's see. They said, our father said of the substitute, she was fine, but she was no Mary Kay. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that means. Does that mean her classroom was clean? She didn't have cat poo that had been stored in the class for a year? Does that mean she didn't keep her hands on the students? I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that means. You know Mary Kay. Thank God. That should be, thank God. Thank God. The world don't need no more Mary Kays. Certainly not in the classroom. Let's see. They went in and asked them what they loved about Mary Kay. And it says she was fun. Pretty. Here we go. Here we go. Who is the person in charge of this? Like, did you plan that? What are your credentials? The mediocrity, again, it seems like Mary Kay is not the only mediocre white staff member present. Like, Jesus Christ. Did you think this out at all? Let's see. They got the notebook where they can like, all of this. Like, what are your credentials? Who came up with this plan? Was it vetted? We in the middle of the geometry lesson. I got to pause. I need to go, and I got so many blonde memories. And oh, Mary Kay. You know, she let us call her Mary Kay. Mary Kay, we miss you. Can't think about no parallel triangles and such. We got Pythagorean theorem and such, 90-degree angles and such, and I got old Mary Kay on my brain. Parallel lines, there we go. Yeah, I can't think about all that. Isosceles triangles, I can't think about all that. I got Mary Kay on my brain. What? What? I told you, let me get the reading comprehension scores of Mary Kay's children. Since she's so brilliant, let's see how smart her children were, what they did after she left, or even before. All this about the tacks on the floor and the dirty diapers, and I mean, I thought this was a perfect family. Remember how many times we looked and Perfect was in this book dozens of times, and All American, that's the name of the movie, All American. Is that All American? You got dirty diapers stacked up in a mountain in your house? Now, I don't have children, so I mean, but still, come on. You're a blonde white woman. You do all this lying image. I'm going to go and spend $8,000. Remember she talked about that skirt? I'm going to get this expensive skirt that I can't even afford, and we're going to waste all this gas to ride around and get a Halloween costume to make an impression. Man, nothing makes an impression like a filthy residence. You at least clean up the downstairs area. Like we at least get the Pampers. We at least get the Pampers and get those to the trash. We at least cover the tax up. We don't want no medical bills. We ain't got no money anyway. Man. She said it was so many things to do. Things to do like what? You don't watch your children. You don't show up on time for work or family events. So what exactly are you doing with your time? Oh, you're raping that brown boy. Got it. Let's see. He said, man, this passage right here, when I got this one, I said, man, this is why nonfiction and non-white people should pay attention to a variety of things. Even I remember we heard the commentary about black people should just pay attention to black people's issues and our own concerns and forget everybody else. I said, I don't agree with that. Hey, Neely Fuller Jr. obviously didn't agree with that because he was very informed about the Mary Kay Letourneau situation, which had nothing to do with black people directly. But he thought it was important and related to the system of white supremacy racism and why non-white people should not engage in sexual activity with a white person. But this passage right here says this is, I can't get the page because it's ebook. It says, Steve returned several times, and each time tension filled the air. Mary Kay repeated her concern that she feared additional rage when he saw the mop of slick black curls. Now that right there, white people are not, cannot be ignorant about racism. To hear that so many times, I think Lauren pointed that out, and you even got the children. They said the twins, Amber and them, they came over. What's the first thing they did? Let's see the baby, let's see the baby. You think the dad is a nigger? Look at all that mop of slick black curl. Get the camera. I thought you're not even supposed to take pictures. They ain't know we got to show. This ain't Steve. Look at it. She been sleeping with some nigger. She been sleeping with a nigger. Look at it. Sound like Meghan Markle now. These are children. Do they sound like they're ignorant about racism? They don't even sound like, hey, baby healthy, she okay? Oh, no. Is she dark? What kind of hair? Oh, Lord, she got the kinky hair. Oh, get the camera. She said Mary Kay went to tell her, let me tell you what the baby name is. She said, what? I don't even remember. I can't get all. Did you see how dark the baby was? What was the baby's name again? I don't even remember. Did you see how dark the baby was? Lord, she had all that hair. Oh, Lord. That ain't Steve. Steve is going to kill that white woman. How dare you bring this little kinky hair thing? We just heard this with Meghan Markle. We just heard this. Other side of the way, the exact thing. Oh, Lord, Meghan, that mop of slick black curls. What we going to do? Oh, why did you marry her? Oh, you done messed up the whole royal family. White people are not, and really that's white genetic. Oh, somebody asked, did Dr. Welsing know about it? What if Dr. Welsing had read this book? Oh, Gus T, you coon. We could have done a whole program. Just about that alone. She done had this baby with the dark hair and dark skin and think that Steve gonna kill her about this. Dr. Welsing wasn't on that either. That I'm only going to pay attention to things related to people classified as black. Dr. Welsing easily could have read this book. She and Mr. Fuller could have talked about this. Woof. Can't believe. Grand Marnier. We didn't get Mad Dog 2020, but we did get Grand Marnier. Got to have our liquor reference in the what kind of mom is Mary Kay? You supposed to be breastfeeding and what have you. You sitting around talking about raping children and drinking liquor. Let's see. They got the black hair, and father is black. They said the girls called a few friends. They didn't call the friends to tell them the child is healthy. Got all his fingers. Mary Kay might have been sleeping with a Negro. Can you believe? Look. You see that hair? Mop a slick black curl. And we got that, the slick black curls. That's not the Swingo book. That's We Were Once a Family. Devontae Hart and them going off the cliff. We talked about, see, white people don't care about it. Let's see. They said the girls were in shock. Why were they in shock? You see all them dark. That's one of the. These are white children. Did they sound ignorant about racism? Did they sound ignorant about white genetic annihilation? They are in shock. Oh, and it's not even, we're in shock. This means she was raping that little boy. Oh my God. Oh my God. You hussy. You child rapist. You pedophile. Ugh. Get away from me. Ugh. No, it was. Has she been sleeping with a Negro? Oh my God. Susan, look. Mary might have been sleeping with a Negro. How is Steve gonna live this down? Oh. Let's see. Oh man, I had to change my highlighter. They said a constantly ringing phone in one hand, caller ID box at the ready, the remote control for the television in the other hand. Mary Kay sat at her command post. She was in a foxhole at the center of a storm of her own creation, and she seemingly loved every minute of it. That right there, I saw until the day that she died. I didn't do nothing wrong. Rated R. And I love this. Put the camera on. Can you see me? Get my good side. You see my blonde hair? Make sure you got my red lipstick. Get my good legs. Everybody know boy, I'm good looking Mary Kay boy. All the 6th grade boys want a little bit of Mary Kay boy, I won't tell you. She loved it. Narcissism and white supremacy. Dr. Welsing, we've got to talk about. Let's see. Oh, and then a little hate mail, but mostly supportives. One time, Mary Kay pulled out a letter that had been written by students of her 6th grade class. We just love Mary. We miss the recess, Mary Kay. Oh, we miss our blonde, pretty blonde white woman with no structure and cat poo in the classroom. But that right there, where she said they get the supporters, the weirdos calling in to offer their support, where Lauren had said, she act like that's not me. That right there, the young lady who wrote in and said, man, it seemed like white people are all right with this. Yes, they are. That, for the most part, they said the coverage of this, you don't need to take this seriously. Right on, Vili. Woo! That's every all-American boy's dream. Yes, Mary Kay, teach me about some birds and the bees. Let me stay over at the Letourneau house. That was the response. Vili ain't no victim. That punk, gang-banging thug, hip-hopper in White Center. That's the way they talked about Vili. He's not no victim, which we heard again today. Vili ain't no victim. He ain't like these other white children. Gang-banging thug, stealing my fila jacket. Punk. They name call. See, you do all that. Matter of fact, who has been called more names in this here book? Mary Kay or Vili? The child rapist or the child? Because I remember they already called him a gangster, gangbanger, whatever it is, so we at least got one. I don't remember nobody calling Mary Kay no names. What did they call her? Beautiful? Pretty? All-American? Punk, Vili. We'll get to the second audio segment. If we didn't, get your commentary, write it down. We'll have ample time to share as we proceed. Katherine, Massey, Book Club, rated R. Gregg Olsen's If Loving You Is Wrong. Audio section 2.
Chapter 51. For Susan Murphy, the president of the Highline Education Association. The day Mary Letourneau moved out of her classroom brought a combination of sadness and disbelief. It was a Saturday, not long after Audrey's birth, that brought Mary, her newborn, and her friend Beth Adair, along with Susan and a school district security official, to Mary's old classroom at Shorewood Elementary. As for Mary, she had come full circle, returned to the scene of what some considered a crime, the place where she said she fell in love with a boy. For the others there to oversee and help the stroller-toting former teacher, it was the end of what had been considered a promising career. Mary had been instructed after her baby arrived that she would need to remove all of her belongings from her old classroom. Other than a few books, very little of her personal effects had been sent to her after she was arrested. Susan Murphy was on hand to represent Mary, who was still on the district payroll, though most doubted it would last much longer. Susan had been told that Mary had a couple of boxes to pick up. Mary arrived with her baby in the Audi Fox that her father had brought to her before Audrey's birth. It was apparent that her vehicle would not hold all she had left behind in room 39. It wasn't a couple of boxes, Susan Murphy recalled later. It was closets full of stuff, tons of projects, props from plays. Several closets within the classroom were overflowing with belongings that the district did not wish to store any longer. The HEA president figured if she were the teacher leaving that classroom, say to go to another school, she would have marched 3/4 of what they were hauling out over to the jaws of an awaiting dumpster. Mary wanted everything, every scrap, every project. It bewildered Susan, and she had to bite her tongue to avoid what she wanted to say. "What are you thinking? Where are you going to put all this stuff?" Mary, upbeat and excited, wanted it all. She was kind of childlike, Susan later said of Mary's behavior in the classroom. I didn't get a sense that she understood the severity of the situation. She'd wander from one thing to the next. She was sort of disorganized, kind of wandering around in circles. While the group sifted through Mary's belongings and pressed on with the business at hand, Susan came across a pink detention slip with the name Vili Fualaau. She put it in one of the boxes without saying a word. Susan also got a clue about how the children in the classroom were feeling toward Mary and her successor. Inside a drawer, she found notes disparaging Mary's replacement. "So-and-so sucks. I hate so-and-so." Mary went from one item to the next, exclaiming interest and recalling memories that came to mind as she boxed up student projects. She had a kind word for everyone and everything associated with the remnants of all that had once mattered. When the mountain grew larger, Susan called her husband to bring his car to provide more packing room. Half a day had passed before it was time to caravan over to Normandy Park, unload, and put that sorry episode behind them. Late spring in the Puget Sound region brings a burst of growth and incessant rain, and in a week's time lawns can be overgrown, with no dry days in sight to mow. But that was not the case at 21824 4th Place South. The Letourneau home stood out from the others in the tidy neighborhood. Its lawn was overgrown, and dandelions were rampant. Susan Murphy felt another pang of sorrow for Mary and her family, though she could never dismiss the professional breach of trust and responsibility that Mary had blatantly and seemingly cavalierly forsaken. Somehow, Susan held some hope that Mary and Vili's story was truly one of a deep and undying love, even though it was as wrong as it could be, and there was no way to make it right in her mind. She allowed herself to hold out some hope for a somewhat happy ending. Susan didn't really buy into it, but even so she hoped for it anyway. Otherwise, she knew, all of this was for nothing. Mary skittered about the half-empty house and announced that she'd spend some of her free time going through each and every item. She thanked everyone for their concern and help. Susan Murphy will never forget the sadness she felt for Mary Kay Letourneau, her new baby, her husband, her children, and, because she had devoted her life to it, too, the teaching career that she had squandered. Years later, that Saturday at Shorewood still brought a sigh from Susan Murphy. She was never going to teach again. Her certificate had been revoked, unless she went somewhere where they didn't care about having one, or, for some strange reason, they had never heard of her. That would be pretty incredible. Antarctica, maybe. When teachers at the school heard Mary's things were finally gone, they were both relieved and a little angry. They saw her tardiness in retrieving her things as more than just putting something off because it was painful. It was about power. She didn't come back until after the baby was born, which personally I felt was a little game with her. That the kids would know her stuff was still there and she was in charge, said one Shorewood teacher. Mary Kay wouldn't have given a single thought to the Shorewood teachers after she left the school with her belongings. She had a bigger problem. She told friends that she thought that King County Police Detective Massey had it in for her. It was personal, Mary told a friend later. They were all saying that it was some kind of Hitlerian mentality going on, that I had sought out a genius in order to give me a better baby than Steve could. Pat Massey was behind that. What was with her? I couldn't figure it out for the longest time until David Gerke told me to consider that something was going on between us, woman to woman. I've encountered this before in my life. I won't say jealousy, but something like that. Resentment. Here I was with the love of my life, and I'm living on the water in Normandy Park. And she's this pockmarked detective living in SeaTac somewhere by the airport. And she will never, ever get to Normandy Park, and I have. Never. And for that, no matter what her motives, Pat Massey would probably be eternally grateful. Chapter 52. A turning point for Amber and Angie Fish came a few weeks after Audrey was born. From that rainy night in late February when they first tried to comfort Mary Kay, to their babysitting excursions to Normandy Park after Audrey was brought home from the hospital, Mary Kay didn't let on about her true feelings for her former student. But then she started to refer to Vili Fualaau more frequently. She started to tell the girls that she was in love with him and he was in love with her. They had wanted to make a family, and, against all odds, she was going to do everything in her power to prove it to those against the idea. I remember her talking about it, Amber said later. Yeah, it's like Romeo and Juliet. And I asked her what she meant, and she said, you know, we're forbidden to be together, and I hope it doesn't end up like that. Amber knew how Romeo and Juliet ended. Was Mary Kay suggesting a suicide pact? When Mary Kay started speaking of the relationship with her student as a love story, it was such a departure from what the twins understood that they found it hard to process. They had seen the media accounts on television and read some of the legal papers scattered around the house. They knew there was a difference between a love affair and a crime. They also didn't believe Mary Kay was the criminal type. All of it was confusing. We really didn't know what to think, Angie said later. Although the girls thought of Mary Kay more as a peer than an adult figure, they didn't try to dissuade her from her impossible plans. There was no point in going against her. I never thought it would come to the point where she'd go to jail. We just kind of blew it off. We never agreed with her, but the way she was saying, I'm never going to jail, the way she talked about everything, rolling her eyes about everything, it made it seem that it was not that big a deal. It was coming from her, so we didn't think it was a big deal, Amber said later. Amber Fish had a good memory, and when she learned that Mary Kay had been involved with a boy that she had taught in 2nd and 6th grades, she flashed on an incident that took place 4 or 5 years earlier at Carriage Row. I can remember one day standing in her kitchen, and she was telling us, she came home really late, and I don't know if she was with him, but she was telling us the story about this little kid, an incredible artist. He was amazing, smart. Amber wondered if this was the same child. Mary Kay had been so animated, so excited that night. Though it was true that Mary Kay was the type of woman who frequently showed enthusiasm for the world around her, this was different. The 2nd grade boy she was talking about had touched her deeply. Though Mary Kay thought the world of this child, she never spoke of him again. Later, when she thought about it, Amber Fish would bet money that the boy she had talked about years before was the same one she had been accused of raping. Amber and Angie knew that Mary Kay was not supposed to have any contact with Vili, but they were certain she broke that rule, though she never came out and confided that she had. There were occasions when she would whisper into the phone, "The twins are here. I'll have to call you back." A couple of times the girls would later say, Mary Kay held the phone up to Audrey's little round face. "Yeah, do you want to hear her?" Those calls were more important than the others were, though they were often quite brief. Mary Kay didn't want to leave the house, partly because of the media mob, but also because she didn't want to miss any phone calls. She had her phone in her hand at all times. All of the diapers were around her, the remote control and caller ID in her hands the whole time. How much had her great-grandchildren really seen of their mother's relationship with her 6th-grade student? It was a question Nadine had asked herself time and time again. She worried and wondered. She knew that Stevie Jr. was certainly old enough to figure out what had been going on. In fact, she knew from conversations with Steve and Sharon that the boy had been out with his mother and Vili in the van at night. For a cover, she surmised later, of Mary's insistence that her oldest accompany her and Vili on their nighttime excursions. If Stephen ever questioned it, I had Stevie Jr. with me. What could be going on? A telephone conversation between Sharon and Nadine confirmed Stevie Jr. was not the only one who knew what was going on. As Sharon told it, Mary Claire burst into tears one day as she sat at her grandmother's kitchen bar. "What's the matter? Did Grandma say something to hurt your feelings?" The girl continued to cry. "I love my mom," she said, "but I don't want to love her because I know that she did bad things and I don't like what she did. But I'm supposed to love her because she's my mom." I saw her and Vili in bed together. Sharon Hume was devastated by the disclosure. "What was I going to tell the child?" Sharon said to her mother Nadine. "We know your mom did wrong, but your mom is sick. We just have to wait to see how things turn out." Later, Steve Letourneau's grandmother learned through his girlfriend Kelly Whalen that Stevie Jr. saw his mother and Vili in the shower, but kept his mouth shut. "She probably threatened him," the grandmother said later. Later, Nadine recalled a photograph that had been taken of the Letourneau children not long after they were separated from their mother. The great-grandmother didn't recognize Stevie and asked a family member who the boy was. "Oh, my God, he looks like a zombie. He looks so withdrawn and pathetic. Couldn't believe it. It was Stephen." And as the weeks passed, cracks the size of the Grand Canyon emerged when it became apparent that things had been very ugly in Steve and Mary Kay's household. As if the sex stuff wasn't bad enough, Nadine learned there had also been physical violence. And while no woman deserved to be hit, if there was one who did, as Nadine viewed it, Mary Kay was a good candidate. Steve's grandmother wouldn't put up with any man backhanding her, but she felt Steve had done the right thing because he had told her that he had no choice. His story was that he was defending Mary Claire. He said the only time he ever laid a hand on her was when she was 7 months pregnant and he shoved her because she was going to hit Mary Claire. "You aren't laying a hand on her," he said. "She said, 'That's my child and I will if I want.' No, you won't." He grabbed her by the arm and he shoved her back onto the Davenport. Steve, of course, didn't tell his grandmother about the purported altercation with the van in the driveway, the holes he allegedly punched in the walls. Chapter 53. Nothing steamed Mary Kay more in the summer of 1997 than the visits with the psychologists who were trying to figure her out, picking apart her brain, re-examining her childhood, dissecting her marriage. The whole concept of the treatment was absurd. She thought one woman used brainwashing and concentration camp techniques as she tried to break me down to nothing. "These people aren't helping me any," she told Amber and Angie Fish one afternoon when they were at Normandy Park helping her with Audrey. "I know what's good for me." The treatment provider in Federal Way was particularly cruel. She reminded Mary Kay of Steve's mother with brown hair. "She's the biggest bitch I've met in my life," Mary Kay said. Amber felt sorry for Mary Kay. The way she had described some of the psychologists made them seem harsh and indifferent. Mary Kay needed understanding, not judgment. She said they were really cold and impersonal, and she didn't like talking to them at all. "So I felt bad that she had to go through that," she said later. Angie later remembered how Mary Kay railed against the whole process. They were trying to feed her the right things to say, and she didn't want to say the relationship was wrong. She hated it. She really believed she was right, and the evaluators were telling her that she was wrong, and it made her mad. She was really stubborn and wouldn't agree with them, the teenager recalled. Mary Kay also hated the idea that Audrey couldn't come with her. Because of the nature of the child rape charges, she was ordered never to be alone with any of her children. No one expected her to molest her baby, but a rule was a rule. Mary Kay didn't care. "I'll show them," she said in what had become typical defiance. "I'm going to bring her anyway." One time she called the Fish twins from Federal Way and asked them to come to the evaluator's office. She had Audrey with her, and the psychologist insisted that she be in someone else's care during their session. When the girls arrived and got Audrey, Mary Kay rolled her brown eyes. "I'm trying to prove a point," she said. "I should be able to bring my baby with me." The Fish twins understood Mary Kay's loyalty to her romance with Vili, but neither could understand why she wouldn't go along with the program in order to avoid incarceration. Neither did the twins know how far her defiance of the program had gone. "This little boy you've accused me of raping? Well, he's out in the car waiting for me, and we're going to go off somewhere and do whatever we want to do," Mary Kay had wanted to blurt out during one treatment session, as she later told a friend. The treatment providers pissed off Mary Kay. She thought they were mean-spirited and didn't care about anything but categorizing her as a pervert. They had stripped her down to the core. They had probed in every area of her sexual background so deeply that Mary Kay told a friend she thought she had detailed every sexual experience she'd ever had. They wrote it all down, shook their heads, and told her she was a sick woman. According to what Mary Kay told friends, the whole process was built on humiliation. "You're going to admit what a sick woman you are. You are going to tell your children that you're a pedophile. If you see even a picture of a child, you'll report it." One time, a woman carrying her baby arrived in the waiting room while Mary Kay sat until she was called in for her appointment. They told the lady she had to leave the room because Mary Kay was a sex offender and might hurt her child. "To a woman who was carrying her infant, for God's sake," a friend recalled. Mary Kay knew she was in trouble. The SSOSA program of treatment might keep her out of prison, but it was not a cakewalk by any means. Some alternative. She was trying to do what they wanted her to do, but her feelings for Vili hadn't changed. They weren't going to. Everything that she did just incriminated herself further and further, and it gave the prosecution more ammunition against her. "They were just telling her to do things that were doing nothing but burying her deeper," said Michelle Jarvis a year later. But Mary Kay told them repeatedly that she would rather go to jail than sit through the evaluations. That's really stupid, Angie thought. Chapter 54. Angie and Amber thought healer Leslie Browning was a bit of a busybody, but she cut such a peculiar figure, all bells, spangles, and moonbeams. They couldn't hate her. All they could muster was a bit of eye-rolling and annoyance. Leslie, with her spiky reddish dew, reed-thin legs, oversized eyeglasses, and deep, smoky voice, was well known by folks at Carriage Row. She's the daughter of that natural products gal, Natalie. You know, the one with the pots of plants storm-trooping out her front door. Leslie Browning was in her mid-40s when she reconnected to Mary Kay Letourneau. The gossip line at Carriage Row had been rife with recollections and innuendo since it first became news that a former resident, a pretty young mother of 4, had lost her job as a schoolteacher by having an affair with one of her students. Lines were drawn in a hurry. The Bendixes worked with Steve at Alaska Airlines and held down the side for the northern exiled baggage handler. Most of the women in the complex, including Leslie, were firmly in Mary's corner. For Leslie Browning, however, Mary Kay was a woman of contradictions. She was guarded and cold and effusive and outgoing. "But I don't mean that in a derogatory way," Leslie said many years later, while fabric and plastic moons and stars hung over her healing room, the back bedroom of her mother's condo at Carriage Row. "I mean it in an abused way." Mary was unhappy with the Catholic Church, yet she made every effort to get her husband and kids there every Sunday. She told Leslie that when she became a certified teacher, she'd never work for a parochial school, though she had standing offers to do so. She'd never put her kids in Catholic school either. But after she left Carriage Row, that is exactly what she did. "I was just floored when she sent those kids to Catholic school. She had been so against it," Leslie said. Even when Stephen was just an infant, Mary Kay had a difficult time adjusting to new people, maybe even to the role of motherhood. People who saw the pretty blonde mother getting the mail, would see a different person in the confines of her own kitchen. They saw the shy smile, the reserved presence of a mask. She did tell me at that time that she was unhappily married and would do just fine without Steve. As the years passed, it surprised Leslie that Mary Kay and Steve Letourneau were able to hold it together as long as they had. Unhappy marriages were a dime a dozen at Carriage Row. Natalie Bates had failed in hers, as had her daughter, Leslie. Fran Bendix, Terry Simmons's mother, was making a go of her second time around. But there was something about the Letourneaus. The house was chaotic all the time, with laundry strung from the kitchen to the living room like a Maytag ticker tape parade. But when Mary emerged from the front door, she was perfect. From her shoes to her hair, Mary Kay was perfect. So were her children. Leslie Browning never saw any of Mary Kay's children dressed in anything less than catalog-perfect attire. All the kids in the complex loved Mary Kay. The Fish twins were often joined by Brooke, Leslie's daughter, as the pretty young mother spread a craft project out on the kitchen table or led the kids on a backyard nature walk. After Steve went off to work, Mary would come outside to play. When Steve was around, his wife was more rigid, more self-controlled, soft-spoken. When she was teaching, she shared a laugh about her housekeeping with Leslie. "You know, if I had a student like Stephen and could see how they would live, I'd really have to have a talk with their parents. They're being dysfunctional. Chaotic on the inside and perfect on the outside." That was Mary Kay. I think she's highly intelligent, but emotionally crippled. I think she had problems early on, and she cracked. Leslie Browning was a healer and psychic, and had a business card to prove it. It was in that capacity that she first thought she'd reach out to former neighbor Mary Kay Letourneau to see how she was doing. She didn't care what the media had reported, though it was only the second week in March. There had been plenty of reports. Maybe Mary could benefit from having someone care for her. The voice on the other end of the line was Mary, not a shattered, devastated Mary, but the upbeat woman who would spend all day and night on a papier-mâché project and look like $1,000,000 when she finished it. Leslie asked how she was, and Mary said she was doing all right, getting along in a tough time. Mary thanked her, and when Leslie offered to come to Normandy Park to give her a healing, she agreed to the offer. The house was a shambles, just as it had been at Carriage Row. Leslie offered to clean up the place, but Mary declined. When Leslie noticed a hole the size of a fist pushed through the wall, Mary sighed and said Steve had punched through the drywall. The idea of Steve being violent was surprising. Leslie had never known him to show any kind of temper. Never. But she knew these were difficult times in the Letourneau household. Mary settled onto her pride and joy, the new couch. She caught Leslie's eyes looking at the volumes of psychology books spread in small piles around the sofa. Mary pointed to them and said she had been doing some reading. "I think I might fit the manic depression diagnosis," Mary said. "So I'm going to look for somebody to diagnose me." "Well, you know, Mary, I think what you need is to get through a counseling program." Mary stiffened slightly, surprised at the remark. "No," she said firmly. "I'll go to prison before I go through counseling." "Everyone can benefit from some counseling." Mary shrugged off the remark. Leslie was convinced Mary's reluctance to get help had more to do with shame associated with events from long ago than the affair with the schoolboy. She'd rather do anything than dredge up the past, Leslie thought. She was also very protective of the baby's father, telling Leslie that she would not have his name get into the news. "You're so smart, but you haven't a whit of common sense," Leslie thought. "This is the 90s. We're talking talk television, the Internet city. They're gonna dig it up." There were no tears. She was defiant. She had no clue where this was headed. Leslie was mystified about Mary's father, not only his advice, but also the very fact that he had been alive to offer it. She thought he would have died years ago. Mary had told her that he had terminal cancer back when she was finishing up her degree at Seattle University. She remembered when her mother and Mary discussed natural products that might help buy John Schmitz more time, or even stop the cancer. They visited a bit longer, Mary telling Leslie that she and Steve had talked with her priest, who agreed that a quiet divorce would be the best solution. Mary said that the plan called for shared custody of Stephen, Mary Claire, Nicholas, and Jacqueline, though they would live with Steve for the school year. "We wanted to keep this to ourselves," she said. "If it became public, it would ruin the lives of our children." It was clear that she still hoped that the plan that had been put together by the priest would still work out. Leslie didn't have the heart to tell her she thought it was too late. Mary didn't reveal Vili's name. Again, choosing to preserve his privacy, she called him the boy. She said she was close to the boy's parents. The relationship with the boy was real, deep, and lasting. "Why can't Steve just accept it?" she asked, still supine on the couch. Leslie didn't have an answer, and Mary didn't allow for one. She went on to tell her about some writings that Steve had found. "I made a mistake in leaving out my journal," she said, before correcting herself and adding, "But that really wasn't a mistake, I guess." Mary was worried about her children. She told Leslie her sons and daughters were back east with her family. The children were all that kept her from running. "If it weren't for them, I'd get on a plane and never come back," she said. Years later, Leslie pointed out the irony of Mary's statement. She said she could not bear being in a place where she could not see her kids. Unfortunately, look what happened. The healing took less than an hour. Mary closed her eyes as Leslie moved her hands slowly over her body while imparting her energy and soothing a broken soul. Mary fell asleep, as most of Leslie's clients do. It surprised Leslie. Mary was in dire straits, the head of the School of Hard Knocks, so that such complete relaxation would have been more difficult. Leslie Browning and her mother, Natalie Bates, talked over coffee and tea in their cluttered kitchen at Carriage Row after the healing. Leslie was convinced that there had been a pattern of sexual abuse in Mary's life. Leslie could see it from her own personal experience, having survived sexual and physical abuse from a family member. Mary is the classic sexual abuse child. Everything she's doing, maybe within the family, maybe within the church, I don't know why. She was so adamant about hating it. There was something that happened in the church or school. A couple of years later, Leslie remained troubled by those books and the bipolar diagnosis. "There's a part of me in the gut that believes that the manic depression part was researched on her part, and she found someone to diagnose her. I'm not saying she's not manic, but it is weird. Maybe she was researching to see if she really was manic, but I don't know," she said.
See there? That is exactly what I am talking about. Now, I'm going to have to see if Leslie Browning is white or non-white. But if she had to give pause, I'm not casting aspersions. She didn't say Mary Kay is a lying white heifer. All she said was, I will take pause. Maybe she researched all of these mental issues for other reasons. You know, maybe her childhood sexual experiences and such. Maybe that impacted her. Maybe she did research to see if she was manic based on the experiences that she has had, both self-induced and then her brother drowning and such, right? Maybe. But at least my reading, it seemed like Leslie Browning also thought, something deceptive about Mary. Something deceptive about Mary. Katherine, Massey, Book Club. The number to dial 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate Federal Way. Can't believe I told you to know all these areas. If I had been in goofy Milwaukee, I'd have been so mad and tearful. Shout to Federal Way, not Seattle. Number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. See if I can get in email number 3. not piling them up like I did last time around. Greetings, Gus, listeners, and callers. I found your remote broadcast very constructive. I am in favor of you going to Buffalo again. It would be interesting to get an update on what has happened since the trial and conviction. That is rapidly approaching. Today is August 1. It'll be September before we know it. Mary Kay Letourneau could be a chapter in Delectable Negro. Talk about it. Facts. Her entire life seemed to be centered on satiated, because they said that last week, said she had that hunger. Snack on some Vili. Lost my weight. Satiating her needs no matter who is harmed, particularly in the 8th area of people activity. Promiscuity, pedophilia. Chapter 47. Some of the teachers at Shorewood Elementary felt they were in an emotional battle zone without a general, much less a sergeant. The use of metaphors involving war are so common in white culture. 2. Wonder just how much their principal knew in the first place. Had Ann Johnson been made aware that Highline Security had been alerted about the Marina incident in June 1996? Echoes of the Columbine cover-up, right? 3. Our own counselor was more of a problem. What did you love about Mrs. Letourneau? The young woman asked. What do you hate about Mrs. New Teacher? The counselor allowed Mrs. Letourneau's students to keep a notebook of the articles written about the love affair. I'm no school counselor, but this seems very incorrect. Seems like something that Mary Kay would do. Was the counselor blonde? Oh, no. Was she a real blonde? Oh. I'm pretty sure that she was not black, because they said all the teachers were white, so I don't think they would have non-white counselors either. Chapter 48. Michelle Jarvis made her first trip to Seattle a day after Audrey was born. This place was not only in utter disarray, it was dangerous too. Carpet tack strips had been left along the walls. Doesn't seem all that different from the way she always kept house. Facts, because she couldn't keep up with her own children, her white children. They would go down to the construction site and play in the cement mixer. 2. Her defiance of the court order stipulating no contact with Vili troubled Michelle, similar to the white defiance exhibited by suspected racists during COVID and January 6th every day. You don't tell me, you don't boss me, you don't tell me. All these rules are for these niggers. You go out there and tell Vili, you put that jacket down. Don't you still know Feli jacket? I do what I want. You don't tell me. You stay away from that child. I do what I want to. Matter of fact, she put the white defiance on display in the second half of the year when she said, look here, I got 12-year-old Vili sitting outside right now. I'm going to rape him as soon as you finish running your gums up in here. That's what I want to say. That's what I want to say. If you want to keep it real about what we doing in the therapy session, and I'm in here for child rape. She calls a tandem of other children to be character. Like, what? Isn't that a violation of the court order too? Like, what are you doing with these children? Back to prison. Back to prison. Back to prison. Blonde hair to back to prison. 3. Mary Kay welcomed mother and daughter inside. She was not allowed to be alone. That was what the law said. She told us that it was her friend from California. We never saw the person. Other time, the shower was running the whole time we were there. Ellen later wondered if Mary Kay really had someone there. I said, it's something deceptive about Mary. It's something deceptive. Oh, that's just my friend from California. That's the brown boy. Oh, you got the brown boy upstairs. There was no one there. She is a habitual liar. That's what I say, man. That's why I say I have a hard time doing it. Steve is an ogre, you savage brute. You smacked around a pregnant blonde white woman. You ought to be killed and castrated. Like, 4. Amber would never forget that visit and how she and her sister were dying to take a look under the blanket. Oh, my God. There was Audrey, an adorable baby with a mop of shiny black curls, treating the baby like it's some kind of freak show. Their reaction reminds me of a horror movie. White children are not ignorant about racism, white supremacy. Facts. 5. Everything was around her bed. Amber recalled diapers, 30 diapers sitting there, and she didn't get up to throw them away. She just kind of tossed them to the side. Black people in the U.S. may overcompensate on cleanliness because we are so stereotyped for being unclean. That has been said like for years. James Baldwin wrote about that very eloquently as well, like decades ago, last century. 6. A constantly ringing phone in one hand Caller ID box at the ready. Weirdos were phoning and offering their support. They told her that they understood her because they had once loved what the law had forbidden to love. I beg to differ, Mary Kay. Yes, you are sick like that. 7. She told the twins how he had beaten her when she was pregnant. Neither Angie or Amber could really believe it. Steve was never violent, Amber said. Sometime later, Mary Kay told the Fish twins that Steve had cheated on her. In fact, she claimed that he fathered a baby with a girlfriend before Audrey was born. We have police reports and hospital records corroborating Steve's violence against Mary Kay. Steve's baby, is this true? Old Mary is quite the liar. That's what I said. That's what I said. Like, you know, We'll pause there, come back, get the rest of the email. Star 6-1 for folks who dialed in. If we missed you totally, hand up. Don't wait till the last moment. Caller at 3215. 3215. Did you have commentary on old Mary Kay?
The main thing, sorry about that, guys. The main thing I'm getting from it is that, you know, there's no responsibility because, you know, it's not really her fault. You know, first her mom was kind of, you know, standoffish with her. It didn't seem like they had a close relationship, so it's her mom's fault. And then her dad was slutting around and having sex with other women and having babies and not taking care of them, being a deadbeat baby daddy. So it's not her fault on that. It's more of her dad's. And then her husband. So that's 3 times where people are giving her, you know, the right to say, well, dang, it's not me. I'm not really doing it. It's really other people in my life that are kind of forcing me into seeking out one of my elementary students to have sex with and have a baby by him twice. Disgusting. That don't even really describe what we've been listening to. It's just, I'm in my life.
Much obliged. Much obliged. Oh, Mary said, love. Other folks who dialed in, if you have commentary to share, star 6-1. Lauren, retired firefighter, should be with us. I'll look for other callers. Star 6-1.
May I hear?
Lauren, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I was actually thinking, like, it seems like she might have planned the pregnancy, right? Or in the last section, it said that they planned the baby, Mary Kay and Vili. But I kind of think Mary Kay planned it. And I also think in that section you played from the audio from the movie, he wanted to have an abortion. I don't know if that was said in real life, but it seems like it might have been better if she did have an abortion, because it seems like that baby, both of the babies kind of trapped Vili with her. And I think if she would not have been pregnant, her punishment might have been less. Although I do think she deserved the 7 years. I'm not trying to be mean or whatever. Maybe those children have wonderful lives or whatever now, but I think it could have. It was just very difficult for Vili, whether he realizes that or not. Also, I want to comment. I think the music exceptionally well chosen. Gus, chapter 51, when Mary Kay, after she has the baby, she goes back to the schoolhouse to clean out that filthy classroom. It's full of stuff that another teacher said it should have went. 75% of it should have went in the dumpster. It said Susan Murphy was on hand to represent Mary, who was still on the district payroll, so most doubted it would last much longer. Now, think about that. This lady then had sex with Vili, produced a child, got arrested, hasn't been there for a while, and she's still getting paid. That is, man, that's wild. just her wanting to keep all the stuff that was in the classroom, I think it indicates that she engages in hoarding type behavior, especially all the other things that were said about the filthiness of her house. It was commented that she was kind of childlike. Susan later said of Mary's behavior in the classroom, I didn't get a sense that she understood the severity of the situation. She'd wander from one thing to the next. She was sort of disorganized, kind of wandering around in circles. And we get these conflicting, some people say she's childlike, she just doesn't understand. And other people are like, oh, she's so smart, she did great in school, she was genius. I don't know what to make of it. There was another part. It said, though she could never dismiss the professional breach of trust and responsibility that Mary had blatantly and seemingly cavalierly forsaken, somehow Susan held some hope that Mary and Billy's story was truly one of a deep and undying love. He was 12. Even though it was as wrong as it could be, and there was no way to make it right in her mind, she allowed herself to hold out some hope for a somewhat happy ending. Susan didn't really buy into it, but even so, she hoped for it anyway. Otherwise, she knew all of this was for nothing. I don't think she's saying that because she cares about Billy's welfare. I think she just wants Mary to be somehow happy. It said she was never going to teach again. Her certificate had been revoked unless she went somewhere where they didn't care about having one, or for some strange reason they had never heard of her. That would be pretty incredible. Antarctica, maybe? And I thought to myself, maybe Zimbabwe, like old Michael Swango. Who is this? This one kind of, I was surprised by it. It said they were all saying that it was some kind of a Hitlerian mentality going on, that I had thought out a genius in order to give me a better baby than Steve could. Pat Maley was behind that. What was with her? That didn't make sense to me. Hitler probably would not have chosen a non-white person for production of offspring, at least not over a white person. Also, someone in the text said they thought Vili was illiterate, and he kept saying he wasn't a victim after he'd been sexually abused. Now, I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying Vili did not seem to have a high level of comprehension of his situation. This person's just confused. And geniuses are usually able to process thought on a higher level than most other people, and that did not seem to be the case. I know that the Romeo and Juliet stuff, like, I didn't know, was she talking about a suicide pact? Seemed like Amber was wondering about that. The daughter of Mary Claire, she said, she's talking about Mary Kay, I'm supposed to love her because she's my mom. I saw her and Billy in bed together. Ugh. Yikes. Yeah. Man, she's in a terrible position. I hope she didn't see that. That would have been awful. Miss Nadine, the grandmother. As if the sex stuff wasn't bad enough, Nadine learned there had also been physical violence. And while no woman deserved to be hit, if there was one who did, as Nadine viewed it, Mary Kay was a good candidate. I thought that was funny. Let me see. Oh, Mary Kay was not supposed to take her baby to those appointments, her sex offender appointments, and they told her that she wasn't even supposed to be alone with any of her children. It said no one expected her to molest her baby, but a rule was a rule. Mary Kay didn't care. I'll show them. I'm going to bring her anyway. One time she actually had to call the Fish twins from Federal Way to come to the evaluator's office because she took the baby, even though she knew she wasn't supposed to. I mean, this lady just will not follow the rules. Let me see. Yeah, I think that's all I have for now. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
I'm blonde. Do what I want. Rules do not apply. I'm blonde. I do what I want. The Hitlerian mentality to have a so-called better quality baby, man, I fell out in the floor. One, I don't think I've ever heard that as a term, Hitlerian. Not that I was confused. I got it, but still. Wow. I did not. Now, I even had to pause now. Didn't Mary Kay say that she blasted the German music, Rammstein, when they were out saying your dad is a racist, John Birch Society, and it's disgrace. She said, I'll show you. Man, she turned on to Rammstein. Anyway, maybe that doesn't have anything to do with anything at all, but it reminded me of Jonestown, because that began with Adolf Hitler, World War II, the Lebensborn. We're going to have this great crop of Aryan blonde, white babies. Perfect. All Nordic. Can't say all American. All Nordic. White babies. We talked about that. They have so much scholarship and documentaries and books and dissertations, like, woo, and I mean, like, brand new. Like, they've been talking about, white people have been talking about this for like 60 years. Even that concept of Hitlerian births, and this great stock of white children. I don't know, these children are white. Anyway, but man, Jonestown, one of our greats from the Katherine Massey Book Club, retired firefighter in Florida. Did you have commentary to share?
Yes, sir. In the beginning of the second reading, I was listening to the comment, moved out of her classroom, and the author was so casual with that. You know, well, what else do you expect? And I have down here as far as notations, it should have been written expelled because of an arrest for rape, and back to the issue of dirty homes or, dirty dwellings. I think there used to be a program on television at one time, I can't remember when, that name was hoarding. The name of it was hoarding. So people can be entertained by such a thing called hoarding. That's what it's called. My mind went in the second reading went global with this crime, and I found out that at least 31 countries have a death penalty for raping a child. In Samoa, which, from my understanding, used to be partially a property of, quote unquote, the United States, which really means white people. In that case, their rape standards has here legal consequences for raping a child are severe and depend on the age of the child. And it starts by saying rape of children 12 and under in Samoa is the sentence you would be punished by life imprisonment. Between 12 and 15 years old, you get 10 years. You get 10 years. The term of consensual sex in Samoa is 16 years. Just my thoughts. I wandered into it from a global standpoint and wanted to know about how rape is considered in other places, as well as where the victim is connected with. And that's all I have. Thank you for listening.
Much obliged. Retired firefighter in Florida. White people do not care about children. Let's see. I'll see if I can get in a few of my notes, finish our email as well. Mary Kay admonished the children to keep quiet about Vili's overnight visits. If you tell anybody, mommy will go to prison. That's what she's so conniving in all of this. I don't want to hear nothing about, I didn't know what I was doing. Even if she's manic or whatever, mental illness type thing, no, she has, even really from the very beginning of the book, when they get her at the marina at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and the police pull over, what's going on? Who is this in the back? How old is he? He says, oh, he's 18 years old. I know I am raping a child. This is totally incorrect. I should be underneath the jail. And I'm practicing racism, getting this old brown boy. I'm very aware of all that. I know what I'm doing. This is not I'm ignorant or unaware of mental health or none of that. I'm going, look here, children. Shh. You say nothing about the brown boy being... Let's see. Even when she goes to school to get her belongings, and they describe her, some of the staff, as being childlike, even that I had pause. This is a 30-year-old white woman in her 30s, not even 30 on the nose, in her 30s. She's not a child. Again, that movie that we started with today is All American Girl. She's not a girl. She's not a child. She is a child rapist. Now, you can say she was goofy, flitty, lots of different, but childlike? She was like Vili in the class? Get out of here, man. Come on. Goofy? I'd even take that like, whatever. Not taking this seriously? No problem, but not childlike. Disorganized. See, I think Lauren talked about that. There's so many contradictions. Like, was she a brilliant teacher who was so smart and talented in the classroom, or did she keep pooping in the classroom for a year? Disorganized. The assignments look like trash. Which is it? And let's get those reading comprehension scores. That way we can fast forward all. Let's get the reading comprehension scores, and then we'll know. Let's see. Oh man, they said late spring in Puget Sound region brings a burst of growth and incessant rain sometimes, and in weeks' times lawns can be overgrown with no dry days in sight to mow. But that was not the case at 21824 4th Place South. The Letourneau home stood out from the others in the tidy neighborhood as its lawn was overgrown and dandelions were rampant. Man, didn't we read that old goof? Because I guess nobody but me and Lauren was here. That old goof, the man in the High Castle, where they had Project Dandelion. We got to get rid of the yellow. Oh. And the white perfect house, they got all that niggardly yellow out in the lawn. We just heard about the homeowners association. Sometimes you get fined. They might even get the police to come out and nigger knock you if you don't get them dandelions up off your lawn. Let's see. Susan Murphy will never forget the sadness she felt for Mary Kay. Have we heard anybody in this book say, man, I sure did feel sad for Vili? I don't remember anybody saying that. He'd been called a gangster and a thug, and it wasn't his first time now. Maybe Vili kidnapped her. Maybe that's... Anybody? Man, I sure do feel bad for Vili. Man, messed up his education, and man, what Lauren does that, children having children, like anybody? Yeah. Let's see. Then even the teachers, see, Game recognized Game. All those white women at the school, they said they saw her tardiness in retrieving her things as more than just putting something off because it was painful. It was about power. They didn't even say that old tacky privilege. No. Power. Darn tootin'. Let's see. When she gets into all this about living in Normandy Park, and I think there's some resentment with Pat Maley. This officer is out to get me and make up all this nonsense on me. You're a child rapist, one, and I mean, you are tacky and can't even put your dirty diapers in the trash. Like, I'm envious of Mary Kay, who all that credit card debt, you can't even pay your bills. You're in foreclosure. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And truthful, I would rather live in SeaTac and not be in all that debt, living above my means in foreclosure. Hey, if I can afford it, I can stay in SeaTac, and then if I got to go out of town, I can walk to the airport. Win-win. And I ain't raped no child. Win, win, win. Idiot Mary Kay. Racist, excuse me, Mary Kay. Let's see. When Amber, the twins, they say Mary Kay is saying she's in love with Vili, and this is Romeo and Juliet. They say the girls thought of Mary Kay as more as a peer than as an adult figure. That right there, I think we talked about that, where that is probably a part of her grooming process and how she functions with children. That to what I think they called it, blurring those distinctions, boundaries, where, hey, there's no such a thing as adult, and probably some child rapists, that's what they do. There's no such a thing as adult. We're all the same, and you being 12 or 10 or 8 or 5, that doesn't mean anything. If I'm 20 or 30, Woody Allen type thing. Woody. But it might be the same functioning where, what do you mean I'm 35 and you're 13, but we're peers? What are you talking about? I can buy Mad Dog 2020. You can't even drive a car legally. Well, I guess I can give you continue. Let's see. And then she's breaking the rules. They know, even these young children know that she ain't supposed to be talking to that brown boy. But you know what? I think she's sneaking and talking to the brown boy. White defiance. And same thing I said. Now, is anybody, man, I feel sorry for Vili. Like, he could get in trouble in all of this. Like I said, messing up his school. At the minimum, he'd get in trouble with his mom, maybe. Like, man, why she get him mixed up in all this? He already got another, anybody? Thug Vili with that mop of slick black curls. Let's see. Oh my God, I thought this is one of the tackiest in a book that is rife with tackiness. Woo! This ranks high. It might be one of the worst. When they said Steve and Sharon, in fact, she knew from conversations with Steve and Sharon that the boy had been out with his mother and Vili in the van at night. Are you serious? For a cover, she surmised later of Mary's insistence that her oldest accompany her and Vili on their nighttime excursions. If Stephen had questioned it, I had Stevie Jr. with me. What could be going on? A telephone conversation between Sharon and Nadine confirmed Stevie Jr. was not the only one who knew what was going on. Again, widespread, the no snitching, but I mean, what kind of parent, male or female? I'm going to go out, not just and be tacky and have my affair and step out, whatever. I'm going to go and do some child raping. And to make sure that nobody think anything untoward. Hey, son, come on, me and the brown boy, we're going to take a little ride. It's 10:30. Well, we're going to go by the marina. It'd be fine. Like, what? What? White people do not care about children. Remember, I used to be timid about saying I'm going to get in trouble. Man, I should have read Mary Kay. I'd have been sent out of, put my chest out there, back me down. No, that ain't right, Gus. You don't know what you're talking about. You better get you a Mary Kay manual, buddy. Those are her children, man. Those are her biological white children. What in the... I can't put the H on that one. That one should be the big, filth florin. I got to rape a child. I'm going to use my Mary Kay. Mary Kay. One and only. Jesus Christ. What's the matter, Grandma? Oh, wait a minute. As Sharon told it, Mary Claire burst into tears one day as she sat at her grandmother's kitchen. What's the matter? Did Grandma say something to hurt your feelings? The girl continued to cry. I love my mom, she said, but I don't want to love her because I know she did bad things and I don't like what she did. But I'm supposed to love her. 'cause she's my mom. I saw her and Vili in bed together. What was I gonna tell the child? Sharon said to her mother. We know your mom did wrong, but your mom is sick. Pause. I don't think Mary Kay is sick. That, I hear that a lot of times where white people get let off. I said that before, mental illness and all that. Hey, if you are telling your white children, I was going to say, if you're telling your white children, shh, don't tell nobody. The brown boy was at the house. Shh. That's not, come on. You're doing what you want to do. But forget that. Make sure don't nobody think I'm out here raping. Hey, Stevie Jr. Come on, get out of bed. Get out of bed. Come on. You gonna go out to the marina? Don't you want to see the marina? I'm kind of sleepy. It's almost 11. Come on, we're gonna go see. You can sleep in the van. Come on. Like what? What? Let's see. Oh, whoa. You can get one more. Grandma said that she think Mary Kay threatened her child. You better keep your mouth shut about the brown boy. What? Who is Mary Kay? I'ma threaten my own white children. You better not tell nobody nothing. You know what's good for you. I love me some. What? Come on, man. Come on. We should have read about Mary Kay a long time ago. Let's see. Said Stevie Jr. looked like a zombie. Lord Jesus. She done niggerized poor Stevie Jr. I remember, that's when I forgot, Lauren, the old heathen, up here snickering about Mary Kay being a victim of domestic violence. Ain't nothing funny about Mary Kay being beat on, even if she is a lying racist heifer. Let's see. It seems like Gregg Olsen is not a fan of Steve. I don't know. Like that chapter when he wraps up, he says Steve didn't tell grandmother about the reported. I got to get that in. Steve said the only time he ever laid a hand on Mary Kay was when she was 7 months pregnant, and he shoved her because she was going to hit Mary Claire, who we just heard crying on that. You aren't laying a hand on her, he said. She said that's my child, and I will if I want. And he allegedly grabs her, shoves her down. Now, that's his side of the story. We don't know. I just find it interesting because unless my memory is bad, Mary Claire is the one. There's this conflict between Mary Kay and Mary Claire. She's the one, I guess, that couldn't have cheese. Everybody else in the house eats cheese all the time. Mary Claire's like, no, you don't get no cheese. Get out of it. So it seemed like they had conflict. So, I mean, that just because, if my memory is correct there, I could believe that Mary Kay might be aggravated with Mary Claire specifically. Maybe she got cheese that day. I don't know. And bang. And then we heard this too. Mary Claire saying, I'm upset that I've seen her with Vili. So it could have been some sort of conflict, and she gets upset about all this. Maybe. That's still not justification for striking a pregnant female or female, period, first time, last time. But the author, Gregg Olsen, he says Steve, of course, doesn't tell his grandmother about the purported altercation with the van in the driveway, the holes he allegedly punched in the walls. I don't know. I get the sense he's not a Steve fan. It seems like Mary Kay, pretty, blonde, beautiful Mary Kay, is presented more favorably, in my view, than Steve. Steve is kind of a wuss, doesn't wear the pants, ogre, beats up a pregnant woman. Like, Steve, it's kind of his fault that she, is raping Vili because he's not man enough. That's just kind of the way it seems to me. It's a concentration camp. Woo! Is this a concentration camp? I had to think about that, Jones. I had to think about that. Let's see. Oh, I love it. Mary Kay. This is Mary Kay. This is the essence of Mary Kay right here. This is not sickness. This little boy, Brown, you've accused me of raping? Well, he's out in the car waiting for me, and we're going to go off somewhere and do whatever we want to do. Rated R, rated X, and I don't see nothing wrong. White defiance. That's the essence and spirit. They should have put that on her tombstone. Like, read that when we go to the repast and we're going to get our sweet potato pie and everything else. Like, read that right there. That is the spirit of Mary Kay Letourneau right there. I'm going to do what I want. You can tell me what to do. Stay away from the brown child. I bet you I'll be with the brown child in 5 minutes. Now, say something about that. Say something about that. Tell me not to rape a child. Go get pregnant again. Let's see. People who saw the pretty blonde. It can't even just be one. People who saw the blonde mother, the pretty blonde mother getting the mail would see a different person in the confines of her own kitchen. They saw the shy smile, the reserved presence of a mask. What? What? Not the face of a child rapist? That's what I mean. Like, the author seems really cool with Mary Kay, much more so than Steve, just in the way that they are presented throughout the text. I'll pause right there. Let me see if I can get through last email, and then we can wrap up. Email 3, chapter 49. Mary Kay never conceded Vili. Oh, this is Mary Kay's friend. Never conceded Vili part of the group. That child was never a child like Mary Kay's son. Ellen saw him not the same as the other suburban kids. Characteristic of suspected racists, seeing non-white children as older than their actual age. What evidence does she have that they knew? Good question. 2, teacher trying to save a boy from his family, his past, and a future that was dark and without room for all that he could be. Dark. Words to avoid unless you're talking about light. Absolutely. 3, Gregg Olsen was also alarmed by Mary Kay's insistence that she was still in love. She appeared to be using love as a defense, and they always insist that she is so intelligent. Yes, I would say. Now, if you mean intelligent in a deceptive and manipulative way, I would say yes, absolutely so. Chapter 50. Linda Gardner recalled the time one of their children was missing at Carriage Row, and it was discovered that the toddler had fallen asleep in a pile of debris on the sofa. Eep. More than a half dozen trips to the dumpster were necessary. When you're around everybody, you don't have a scrap of dirt on you. You're perfect. There's that word again. Steve is so feckless. Divorcing Mary Kay and getting your kids away from her would have been the correct thing to do. Nadine told us, Steve, who wears the pants in the family? Not Steve. Not Steve. And many of us, not just Nadine, many people, Mary Kay ran the house. Normandy, wherever they were, Mary Kay ran the house. Nadine ran the house. White women run the plantation. Steve gonna take the children. He gonna do what Mary Kay say. That's why I said it's hard for me to believe. Like, Steve did what now? He did what now? He wouldn't. Anyway. 2, Steve and Mary Kay admonished the children to keep quiet about Vili's overnight visits. If you tell anybody, Mama will go to prison. Told you. So, Steve, you are an enabler of child rape. You are more than a little to blame. I reckon. I don't know. Steve ain't no angel. Steve ain't no angel. And he definitely don't wear the pants in the family. But even as feckless and lame as he is, does that make you go out, I got to rape a child because Steve is so lame? Like, what? And a brown child on top? Let's see. They're going to throw all Mary's stuff in the dumpster. If she was a black teacher, I bet they would have just dumped all that trash without asking. Facts. 2, Letourneau home stood out from the others in the tidy neighborhood. Its lawn was overgrown with dandelions. Good thing they were not black, or the homeowners association would have fined them or put them in jail and eventually taken the house away. I just said that, like, boy, they would have. You see them dandelions? What kind of niggers? You done came out here and gonna mess up our property. We didn't want you out here anyway. You raping our daughters. Boy. Them HOA, they will get on you about some dandelions. Like, you better get out there and get that lawnmower and get to it. 3, when teachers at the school heard Mary's things were finally gone, they were both relieved and a little angry. They saw her tardiness in retrieving her things as boy. Oh, the power, the use of the word power in this context seems important. The power of white women. Facts. Put that underline. 4, resentment. Here I was in the love of my life, and I'm living on the water in Normandy Park, and she's pockmarked detective living in SeaTac somewhere by the airport, and she will never, ever get to Normandy Park, and I have. Never. I am unclear on the meaning of eternally grateful in this context. My interpretation for everything that Mary Kay engaged in and all the lies and child rape and crime for her to get this nest in Normandy Park, and even overspending and lying to put on this lie and deceive people about how her life is when she's living in dirty diapers and losing children in piles of debris, trash. To me, it's, man, if that's what it takes to live out there, I will thank God for the rest of my life. Kind of what I said before, like, hey, man, I can pay my bills. I don't have to max out. I don't have to rape no child. Yeah, I guess we're next to the pollution and the traffic and the airport, but my credit is way better. I don't have no criminal record, and they're not foreclosing on me. So I'm going to take that as a win. That's how I interpreted it, but I could be totally off. Let's see, 52. They know there was a difference between a love affair and a crime. They also didn't believe Mary Kay was the criminal type. All of it was confusing. This is Amber, the twins. The girl continued to cry. I love my mom, she said, but I don't want... Oh, this is Mary Claire. Mary Kay, how many children has she damaged, at least psychologically, in this text? Now, that is a great question. All the children that she had contact with in class, in all the schools that she taught, Vili, his family, because he had other brothers, siblings. I think his mom had 4 children, so all of them, all of her biological children. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Amber, those twins, because they Mary Kay, cool, we love going and hanging out with all-American blonde, perfect family. And what? What? You had sex with a Negro? All of just, come on. As selfish, and even in her family, I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. As selfish as can be. Last one, chapter 53. Nothing steamed Mary Kay more in the summer of 97 than visits with the psychologists who were trying to figure her out, picking apart her brain, re-examining her childhood. The recidivism rate for pedophiles after psychiatric treatment may be as high as 60%. Yikes. To one time she called the Fish twins from Federal Way, and asked them to come to the evaluator's office. The Fish twins understood Mary Kay's loyalty to her romance with Vili, but neither could understand why she wouldn't go along with the program in order to avoid incarceration. This entire relationship with the Fish twins seems inappropriate. Just the fact that they say, we didn't see her as a, adult white woman in her 30s. She was our peer. They're 13. She's our peer. How is that? That's Vili. How is that now? They grown too? They got a grown spirit too? They're going on 45? Really? He continues, particularly since her legal trouble. That's what I said. Like, how is it even legal for her to be hanging out with them? They're minors. They first met Mary Kay in 1990, presumably as children, since they were still living at home with their mother. How old are they in 1997? I'm under the impression they're still minors. I could be totally wrong, but I think they're still minors at this point. So, yeah, the white defiance, and because they're so young and trying to process all of this, like, what? The confusion around them, just what? I thought Mary was cool. She was, what? What? She's going to jail. Like all of it is so massively inappropriate. And Mary Kay's manipulation of all of these lying, and even her own son. I'm going to use my son as a part of the lie. Oh, no, Steve. I'm not going out here to rape this brown boy. No, we just taking Vili and Stevie Jr. We just going to go out and do a little sightseeing. We'll talk to you. Okay, got to go. All of it. When she gets arrested and they tell her, hey, don't have any contact with Vili. And she says, oh, okay, won't do it. Scouts on it. We'll do it. Okay. And then she goes and she gets Katie. Remember that from last week? She says, look here, Katie, maybe you can slip a message or two out. We got a code, me and Vili, and you could just slip. And her mom had to say, whoa, you can't be getting my child mixed up in it. What is wrong with you, man? She says, oh, you right. My bad. What the? That is Mary Kay right there. Right, she is not sick. She's not crazy. She's not stupid. She is totally racist, and it might, because you got this brown boy, and she does not care about children. I say really anybody, but she for sure, I do not care about nary a child. Vili, my children, none of them. None of them. Even get this child, maybe you come over here and get these letters I need for Vili. They could have got, come on. Come on. Mary Kay is the worst. She is the worst. I'm so mad that we hadn't read this book earlier, so I could have spoke about this intelligent. Maybe if I had read this book when I should have, when Mr. Fuller told me to, I would have been saying years ago, white people do not care about children. I could have just started with Mary Kay. They say, that's what they say, you start inward and work out. I could have started at 206 and worked out. Then we could have got to Sandy Hook and Columbine, Jeff Dahmer, and all the rest of the Catholic Church. And the boys have, we start right here, 206. Her own children, we get to Vili later, since y'all don't care about the brown boy, right? He's a gangster and a thug. Look what she did to her own children. Her own white children. We're not talking about the mulattoes, we're talking about her white children. Matter of fact, she lost one of them in trash, and the others, they could have died in the cement mixer. What is that? She done lost, Mary Kay done lost the children again. Can we get the posse? Let's get down to the construction site. You know they love being down where the crane is. Mary Kay didn't even care about her white biological children. You gonna tell me she cared about some students? You gonna tell me she cared about Vili, the Fish twins? White, and I'm saying Mary Kay is white people at large. Man, Greg, one thing I'm gonna say, Gregg Olsen, he put that in about John Schmitz and his Vili type hookup and getting rid of those children in the orphanage and the penis almost being castrated. All that is for a reason. White culture, what does it mean to be white? Can I get my metaphor in for the plants? Got my monstera. They say the fruit don't fall far from the tree. Remember that. Almost cut that boy's penis off. Almost cut that boy's penis off. What? And then dumped him in an orphanage. White people do not care about children. Say, Gus, you stupid. You should have read this book a long time ago. I know. Sorry. We'll finish up next. Well, actually, we will not finish up next. This book is long, too. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's long. Like, wow, we will not finish up next week nor the week after. It's kind of long. I think we're at the halfway point, but more to read. We'll be here tomorrow. Compensatory call-in, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Sentencing in the Sade C. Robinson murder trial. That's another one. White people do not care about children. She was only 19. But that and other events that took place this week. Sobriety would be best, even if they're serving Grand Marnier. Yes, that Mad Dog 2020, whatever. We need high-functioning brain computer. All it takes is one Mary Kay and, shut the whole classroom down. So high-functioning brain computers so we can figure out the master deceivers of the known universe. Creator, we ask that you help us stop producing throwaway offspring to be raped by Mary Kay Letourneau. Stop saying not all white people are racist. Stop name-calling individuals classified as black. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.